Welcome to match day number 3 here in the Apex Legends Global Series. It's time to kick off some more action in Europe. So settle in to the early evening and get ready to hang with us until the late time because it's go time here in the ALGS. We're so excited. It's always fun to get into it. And one of the biggest stakes here is that we are at the end of our first round robin, meaning this is the last match day before every team has at least played every other group once. So we will see who is at the top, who is at the bottom, and who needs to shift things as we head towards our mid-season. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Rain Day. I'm your host, but I'm not alone. As always, I bring the best in the business with me alongside to get the action started, and today is no different. Hailing from Europe himself right now, we've got the man. He's back in business. He was busy last weekend, but he's here with us. Mark, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. It's great to be back. We've had to watch the first couple of match days in the wings, so to speak, but it's been fascinating to watch. I think everybody is locked back into the ALGS due to this huge shift that we've had with the POI draft and everything that Season 21 has brought. So, like you say, we're getting to the end of the first round robin set of matches now, so we're going to have a good data pool to see which POIs are going to be the best ones, which ones are going to be fought for, and what teams are going to be standing at the top of those leaderboards.
It really has been the main discussion in the ALGS, the POI draft starting, but there's so many things with our teams that have changed too, and our players. But of course, someone who's going to help bring the stats and talk about that all is your compatriot, our good friend, Dan Gaskin, who's here as well this weekend.
I like how with Mark, it was like hailing from Europe as well. It's like a proper wrestling intro, which he deserves, but it's great to be back. We've both been biting at the bit to try and get here to commentate on some more Apex Legends, and for good reason. You've spoken about it already. Team changes, draft is now involved. There's going to be a lot to talk about today, and it's going to be a very exciting week.
Well, Dan, I would have said it for both of you, but since you've had to transition moving into the States and living with your lovely partner, it's just at this point in time, I don't know what to do. Are you here? Are you there? I just kind of leave it to, we'll work it out eventually. You guys can let us know in the chat as well how I should introduce Dan if you want. But let's talk about how I should introduce the teams, because that changes each and every week. If you were here last week, you saw a lot of new team changes in Roster Mania occur, as well as the players on them. This week, it goes from Infinite to 3D Max. And the biggest one here, this might have been a gift from the heavens. We'll have to ask Mark about that one. But next up goes into Made in Heaven. They're back. So now what's most important is we don't have to say go next and next up and keep thinking about that. Thank you, Next Up, for that. Back to Made in Heaven. That'll be an exciting one as well. One thing that wasn't exciting, though, and I think for a lot of us had a big impact, these changes from our players. An announcement from the Dear Exo clan recently jumping into our European scene, taking over K20 and Slayer's contract at Element 6, adding in Bryn. Bryn, after that first weekend, we've seen this, has elected to retire from competitive Apex immediately, citing personal life circumstances. ExoClan was so, dedicated to giving this message and saying how much they loved working with Bryn. We saw you guys on the Reddit and the love and expression you had for Bryn as well. And we have seen him do many great things in the ALGS. So while it may be goodbye for now, we hope it's not goodbye forever. And we wish him the best of luck with his next journey. We also saw an adjustment from 40% Worse, or now Apex Warlords, and that of course is the main man himself. I almost said LG. It is LG, but that's his content creator name. You might know him. Shiv FPS is taking a break in the ALGS. His thumb tendonitis is just way too painful to play through, and this is one of those things that it goes beyond the game. It goes into a physical concern for him, and he's got to do what's best, take care of himself first, so we can help his team. And so we'll be looking to see how they bounce back and shift. But obviously Bryn and Shiv, all big parts of our scene, Mark, and it's good to see them taking care of themselves and prioritizing what they need to do outside the game.
Always look after yourself first. It's such an important thing to do. As a man who knows aches and pains far too well, best of luck in the recovery process for Shiv as well. I'm sure it won't keep him away for too long. He's just got to make sure that that's sort of rested up, and he does everything he can to get that thumb working again. But he'll be back. I can promise you that. He'll be back.
Yeah, he's a warlord. That is for sure. The teams here today, there's no slouch. In fact, we've seen in Group B and in Group C be the winners of each match day. Even though we had great performances from Group A, it was, of course, B and C that would ultimately take the day, whether it was ANC Outplayed or Gaimin Gladiators. One of the interesting things about this, though, Dan, just from an overview, is there's a lot of teams who kind of need to, set the tone here for this last day.
Yeah, it's always good to talk about who's kind of doing well and who's at the top, but there's a few teams that have been struggling so far and have an opportunity now to catch up those that have already had 2 match days. And being the last time we see these teams in round robin, it is most important time to try and get some points in early so that you are not part of that chasing pack.
Well, one of the interesting things is when we take a look at the overall standings here, Made in Heaven have really gone off to a huge start. 42 points. They've been excellent so far. Go Next Esports right behind them. Remember, next up, Made in Heaven, that was next up. So it was next up and Go Next. Now it's Made in Heaven, Go Next. And then a good performance from Na'Vi there, but that's their second match played. The teams below them, Gaimin Gladiators and Outplayed, who have played today, both won their days and are now in the same lobby here. So that means a lot for the implications of where this overall standing will lead. But let's go to our 11 through 20 teams, because these teams also have to make some changes. Maybe not the best performances, not the worst. Hoping things start off a little stronger for teams like Alliance, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at points per game day, you look at 11 and you would say that pretty much should be good enough, with one maybe slightly better performance on one of those game days to get you into the qualification spots for LAN. We do know that EMEA obviously is a little bit tighter than it was at one point to get to LAN, but the split 2 playoffs is the goal for all of these teams. Alliance with 11 points on that first game day. I don't think they'll be too disappointed with that, considering all of the crazy changes that have happened in the game and how everyone's had to adjust. So I think the teams there in that page with just the 1 series played will be pretty happy with the standings.
Yeah, absolutely. As we go into our third page as well, some teams, they won't be happy, content with that. One of our homies, we love him, Graceful, he joined us on the desk. 2 points with that Nessie squad. Apex Warlords, you heard what happened with Shiv. A lot of things behind the scenes that we may not be focused on, but that will be the end of this first round robin. All the other teams, though, in this bottom 30, they've got a shot. Even 3D Max, they have a chance to go in and have a big day today and push themselves into the middle or even the top of the pack. But we will wait to see, because Mark and Dan, we've got some specific teams to highlight at the top of this show that you might say are passionate about having a good day. Mark, I'll start with you.
Firstly, I want to say beautifully done. I am talking about Passion, not Passion UA, but just Passion. They haven't quite earned the UA as yet, but one thing they have earned is a pretty good spot in the overall standing. 0-0, Feuda and Henchman. By the way, great game attack, absolutely love it. Don't know if he's absolutely huge and jacked or if he's just like a nasty guy, but either way, 18 points in their first game day is a fantastic performance. They didn't play in the last game day as well, so they've only played 1 series and they sit at 8th overall. Now, one thing to always talk about, and it's the kind of the buzzword in Apex Legends, right? When you're looking at standings, performance, whatever it's going to be, consistency is the key. And when you look across some of their results, the thing that stands out for me is, firstly, my disappointment that they didn't get a second, because that would have made everything wonderful. But a first, a third, a fourth, and a fifth is absolutely phenomenal. I think they'll be very, very happy with how that first game day went. And if they can build from that in a second, they're going to be in a very, very good spot.
And you look at those kind of points, those scores, and you ask, how did they not get first? Well, there were teams that did just that little bit better. ANC Outplayed and the Gaimin Gladiators, 2 teams who were able to find victory in match days 1 and 2, but neither of them finding an actual win in game. Their consistency across the board, incredible, insane amount of kills. Yet they can't quite get over the finish line, but they are finding those fights, they are getting into those engagements, and they are definitely going to be 2 of the teams to watch today. But will the statistic of not finding matches being won hurt them when we get to the final playoffs at the end of it, when we start to talk about match point format? Now, another team I want to look out for, maybe not for how well they've been doing, but disappointing performance so far for 07 in their first run out, especially considering they didn't make the most out of their initial pick. They had Lightning Rod in 3rd, and if you're gonna pick one of those POIs right from the get-go, you'd be expecting points, but they weren't able to achieve really any points at all that they would be screaming and shouting about. So I think they'll try and make a better use of their POI draft this time today. And it was just one of those days, really. I mean, there was a highlight, sadly, that we have to kind of focus on. When you're trying to make a rotation, how many times have you seen this happen in your own games of Apex Legends? You try and go over a mountain, you say, yeah, we surely should be able to make this. Sadly, they were not able to make it. It was one of those scenarios where it was just like, what is our luck? We can't even get over a blooming mountain rain day.
Yeah, it was one of those difficult things, and I think that's just it's insult to injury at that point when you're already not getting the results that you want. You've got a new introduction in Zane that you've talked extremely highly about, and then it doesn't perform on the main stage. You know it's going to get brought up next week, but what Nasky responded to, which I thought was interesting, was that he said, "This is the worst performance I've ever had, ever, and it will never happen again." So we'll have to wait and see. I think we'll all be waiting with bated breath to see how O7 do today. A lot of great names, a lot of great games upcoming as well. And if you want to see those specific rotations your way, well, I've got the perfect place for you to go. It's FACEIT.com/watch. FACEIT. Our friends there have put together a great experience where you can have multiple POVs. You want to include the map. You want to see Nasky in those rotations. See if they get over the rocks this time. No diss, man. But, at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting to see. And maybe Gaimin Gladiators or ANC Outplayed, the teams that have done so well and won the day without getting a win. Will their strategy overlap? We'll see who takes the cake. FACEIT.com/watch. Go ahead and check it out. Well, at the end of the day, it's the beginning of the day. So we got to get things started. Mark, Dan, you know what to do. Let's kick off match day 3.
Let's do it. Let's get into this. Let's close out this first match and group of round robin so that we can finally get a group of stats together, Dan, because that's what we've been talking about a lot before the show. We're sort of looking at POI draft, how things are working, what POIs are providing certain amount of points, what teams are doing well, and we're also kind of in the back of our heads going, well, we've only had 2 game days so far. Let's not get too carried away with this. But certainly some patterns are starting to emerge. And I think it's been a fascinating watch, right? It's really re-engaged a lot of people with how these games are going to play out, how teams are going to adapt. And we're talking about all of this before even a bullet has been fired. So it's going to be an amazing day of action today. You really are joining us at just the right time. And speaking of where we're starting off, Dan, we are going to World's Edge for our first 3 before we head over to Storm Point.
Yeah, so World's Edge, rather than it starting on Storm Point, I mean, we always see this. How is it going to affect certain teams? Are they better on one map than another? Or now we have the POI draft. Have they got a better POI draft in World's Edge than Storm Point? You heard me mention it at the top of the show about O7. They had a really good pick on Storm Point with Lightning Rod, but did not capitalize from it. So once we get into that POI draft, we'll be having a look at who's got those early picks and can they make the most of them.
Well, let's take a look at the draft then. If you're wondering who is going to be dropping where and what pick they got as well in the Snake draft, well, here is your answer. The go-to, the #1 pick so far in the ALGS has been Sky West, and you can see pick 3 is going to go to GG. So they're going to be very, very happy where things have gone. Alliance, though, a little bit of a surprise to me, Dan, to see them picking Survey Camp.
Yeah, Survey Camp that was drafted in 17th, then 15th prior, but they picked it in 12th here today. So clearly they feel like maybe Northern Zones have been more apparent in ALGS, so they're hoping to get some more of those today. A very risky method, but maybe it will pay off.
We'll have to see if it does play off. We'll keep moving through as well to keep you up to date. Stacks is always going to be a good POI as well. You can see FAK, they have that at the moment. Elsewhere, you can see Harvester is going to be going over to full English. Overlook is going to be for RTS. ExoClan, though, a very good drop for them. Lava Fissure, I always feel, was a very, very strong one. And O7 going to be very comfortable with somewhere they've dropped before, which is going to be Siphon West.
Yeah, Lava Fissure actually the 5th most popular POI to be picked at the moment during draft, and we have seen a little bit of success, but perhaps not as much success considering it has been picked up early. But that will all change. Those statistics will start to develop once we have more data. As we mentioned, we only have 2 at the moment. Elsewhere, you can see Passion UA in Skyhook East. Again, that's going to be very tough. I mean, we've seen a few good teams find points from it, but ideally you would rather have the West position.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, this POI draft as well, because like we're talking about its stats, everyone's still kind of trying to work it out. I feel like both team-wise, talent-wise, fan-wise, what's going to be, the strongest POIs to go from. And even if you were to go into the draft, get your first pick, feel very, very comfortable with the drops that you're going to get, as you can see where our World's Edge drops are going to be. You're not even thinking about what the zone is going to impact the game for. You might get Sky West, you might be able to pick up trials, you might be leaving with purples and reds, but if it's going over to launch site and it's going towards Dome in the end game, it's still a rough rotate for you to go through. It's almost as if you're blessed if you go Sky West and you get some zones coming your way as well. They're the match days you need to make the most of.
Something I do want to touch on is we have Climatizer West and Siphon West being selected for the very first time. It's typically been East for both of those POIs. Whether DMS and O7 feel like it's going to be a better position from the other side, it probably won't even matter that much, but it's certainly strange that no one had picked it prior. But maybe you just try and go for one of these different things to throw people off, and it could even encourage some sort of contest. Maybe someone goes for the other POI, but we've not had it happen yet.
Yeah, it might be a case of there's an easier rotation to a potential survey beacon on the way from another POI. It might just be getting a little bit more elevation that you can rotate through. All of these things start to come into it, and it's like, we talk about how the IGLs are, well, they're earning their money right now. It's one way to put it. But also the coaches and the analysts who are sat behind some of these teams, they are earning their money as well, because building a macro around a POI is something that teams have done for so long, right? They have had a POI, they fought for it, they will play an entire season from it in the majority, and everything is based around where the zone goes and what we do from there. But now there is, okay, we have a couple of days to prepare, and it's kind of like, imagine going into your exams. I'm just saying this as someone who did this, by the way, and thinking, my exam's tomorrow. I have not done any revision whatsoever. I need to cram like I have never crammed before to learn exactly what I need to know. And for some of these teams, they wouldn't have played from these POIs very often, and they are going to be heavily leaning on those analysts and those coaches to feed them the information they need to make some decisions.
I mean, that's prime procrastination there from you, and I'm exactly the same.
Me.
And I think a lot of players will be like that, and they expect maybe someone to just guide them in that direction. As you say, IGL is earning their money, as are coaches. But you speak about, where are you going to be dropping? Is it going to be one of the better POI draft positions? I think that a lot of people still don't really know, and we are getting comfort picks that are clearly coming in where people are saying, all right, well, we've done well from here previously. It might not be one of the more ideal POI draft positions, but we know we've succeeded, so let's try it again. And I also think where you are drafting is very important as well. For example, the Gaimin Gladiators, they picked in 19th and 22nd and still found first place. And then on the flip side, ANC Outplayed, they drafted from 4th and 37th and still found first place. But the key differences between those two teams is ANC Outplayed found more of their points from their World's Edge pick, which was their better pick, whereas Gaimin Gladiators were just more consistent across the board. And we are going to need to see teams finding success on their early picks and not throwing it away.
We are not short of talking points, are we, anymore, in the ALGS? We never were, let's be real. We always had the story, we always had, the progression of the splits moving towards LAN, but now it just feels like every single game day has its own story with this POI draft being brought in. You can see, once again, as we head into our game number 1 on World's Edge, where some of those teams are going to be dropping in. Hey, you thought we didn't have enough talking points? We haven't even mentioned legends and compositions yet.
Yeah, haven't even got into what's going to happen. I mean, if you've been watching the past couple of weeks, if you've been watching scrims, it is going to be pretty much more of the same. A lot of Bangalore Bloodhound. Catalyst seems to be the most popular composition at the moment, but EMEA is a little bit different from NA. We do start to see a couple of Newcastles being thrown into the equation. You can see there, people are going to be trying Caustic as well. We know the success of Caustic, especially on World's Edge in certain areas, and the rise of Watson. Ever since Watson kind of got into a position where people realize, well, I mean, Split 1 playoffs was won with Watson. Why wouldn't we continue to use her?
And of course, the rise of Fuse as well. Not just a legend that's going to be able to enable you to interact with a few things around the map, but a very strong pick, I feel, for teams who are playing from the edge of either of our maps. We're in a match number 1 though. Game day number 3 is live here in EMEA. Welcome back to the ALGS. If you have been away and you've been missing us, I gotta say, Dan, it's good to be back.
I mean, I've been missing it, that's for sure. Well, we get a first look at the initial circle, and of course, where everyone has been able to drop out for their POI selection. Climatizer by DMS, remember, they took the west side rather than the east side, but from drop, you can see how quickly you can move over. It doesn't really matter that much, but it does look like we're going to have a northern circle. So when we spoke earlier about Alliance taking Survey Camp, it could be one of those situations where they're like, well, thank God we did.
Yeah, I think it's a very good drop for them. Not only because of where zone is going, which looks like it's going towards Skyhook as we get the beacon information, but they're going to have Ring Console and a survey beacon to play with as well. So some good early access to Evo for Alliance is going to put them in a very, very good spot as they don't have to make too much of a rotation. One thing to keep our eye on though is over at Stacks and Big Maud, because you have FA kids and players very close to each other, and usually historically we've seen one team kind of own both of these POIs, but with the POI draft you're going to see these two teams trying to loot up as quickly as possible, because the last thing they want to be doing is engaging, and you can see that one person is already essentially the watchman for the team at the moment, trying to get some damage down as they collect that Evo holster.
Especially when you see a circle like this and you know it's likely they're going to rotate through you here. You want to try and encourage them to rotate the other way so that if you're not going to be taking that fight, you're going to have a more comfortable rotation yourself. Likely up through Geyser. You are going to be late. You're not going to be one of the teams that's going to have priority of position here. So you can also consider, well, maybe we do want to fight. How about we go for an ambush? Maybe let's go up to Geyser. Let's hide in one of the little nooks and crannies, and we might be able to catch them on their rotation as well.
One thing to note, I think, with how the game has started to progress, teams who are playing from the edge, I think one thing that's given them valuable information is the survey beacon, which is kind of not only allowing them to work out how they want to play the game, but if you can hit a UAV on your way through as well and find out a player scan and find out where other teams are, finding an isolated early fight, especially if you get a little bit lucky with like a ring console, a survey beacon, and an evo harvester next to you, and you can take it. You essentially, by taking that individual fight, you get up to purples early and you clear a lot of path for yourself. So it's something I'm seeing teams do more and more, taking that early fight if it's isolated and they feel that they would have an advantage. It's a great way to get evo up, get early points, and also just clear a little bit of the map.
It gives you so much more confidence as well. If you are going to be on purples and you don't have one of the priority positions, you have to force your way into zone. If you see a team that's on blue and you have purples, you're going to be far more inclined to actually take that fight and try and retrieve that position from them, or at least force them out and then take it from them instead. Now, Gaimin Gladiators, who dropped over towards Skyhook West, they are going to have, of course, one of the better spots, but there is a fight happening over towards Geyser. We spoke about this rotation.
And we spoke about how 07 had a very poor, by their own standards, match day number 1. Well, this early fight for them might be one way to just gain a little bit of confidence. You can see that they don't have the fuse, but the team that they're going up against certainly does. The knuckle cluster is coming in. They've already used the mother load as well. It's more traditional here in the composition with this meta for 07. You're seeing the Bloodhound, you're seeing Catalyst, and you're seeing Bangalore, and a lot of responsibility is going to be on Zayn. He needs to play off of this smokes coming in from Nasky in these team fights, use those scans, and get that damage down.
I think they're both reluctant to take the fight, knowing though that FA Kids could have approached at any moment. Rolling teams not so far from them as well. And again, it's one of those scenarios where you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because if you take that fight, you are going to be providing more noise. You are going to be encouraging someone for the third party. But if you have one of those moments where you're just kind of facing off against one another, you are wasting a lot of time.
Well, one fight that's taking place now is for one of the priority buildings. You can see that Alliance want to be aggressive. They're trying to defend it, actually, at the moment. Havoc in the hand of effect is always a good thing to have. The problem for him, though, no scan coming in, and the Bloodhound will go down as well. So unlucky not being able to provide any scans through the smokes that are going to go down. It's all up to Hackis and Effect now, and now it's just Hackis, the IGL, trying to clutch up here for Alliance.
It was a great trade-off in terms of kills. Going to get a swap as well. Will get the armor, so there is still a big chance here for Alliance, but you can see there are 2 members of Gaimin Gladiators that are still alive, so Haki's having to try and take a 1v2.
He's taking the height. He's going to try and drop here. Has the knuckle cluster to try and cause a little bit of a, I would say, an awkward fight in this situation. Maybe he's going to be able to catch this person off guard. Blast is trying to escape here, trying to recover. They can see they're not really playing together. It looks like Light decided that he didn't want a part of this. He maybe thought that this was going to be a fight that he wasn't going to be able to survive, so decided to get out of dodge, and now Blast is going to be following him. The question is, did the players from Alliance get finished, or will Hackis be able to res?
Hackis still up. I think they were worried that maybe there could be another person in the area, but also it's the amount of presence that Hackis was doing on his own. That knuckle duster alone is so prevalent and so difficult to try and play against, and now we'll have to see whether Alliance can reset at all, as you mentioned, with those knocks, and whether the finishes came through. But there is a lot of action happening in Skyhook as expected, but we'll have to see whether now other teams can make their way in and maybe find one of those priority positions.
You had a little slip of the tongue there that made me giggle. You said knuckle duster, and it was sort of like almost better, if you know what I mean, because he was swinging in that way.
It feels like a knuckle duster,
like he was wearing them because he managed to hold off the 2. They did not feel confident in taking that fight whatsoever. But another team who's just playing this one a little bit slower is going to be DMS over at Epicenter, holding up on this high ground, and I think there is a team that was underneath them, so it's a case of escaping from here, looking for new Evo. You can see they do have an Evo harvester to their north as well, if they wanted to go and collect that, but not too far off of purple Evos at the moment. Just 950 points have to be acquired, but elsewhere you can see that Nasky, he is a little bit lonely at the moment by the looks of things.
Yeah, the rest of 07 are up in Climatizer, so he's just the scouting party at the moment, and hopefully won't have any scenario like they did last time where they had to go over a mountain and sadly were not able to get into said position. But they're going to be down. They're not, especially as it's shown on the broadcast. This is where the circle's going to be going. You can see all those teams that are moving from the northeast that are heading in, but as expected, we just go deeper into Skyhook here. It will be the next ring that will really be the biggest transition for some of these teams that have already found themselves in some of these early buildings.
Yeah, one thing to note, I think, from this season that I've seen is there's a few zones which have popped up that are not what you would say have been traditional zones for the last year or so. There's been some new ones popping up in some little funky areas which teams have had to adapt to. And I think that you're seeing maybe with the spread here in Skyhook that nobody is 100% sure. Obviously, there is a lot more room to play here for teams so they can play for the end game and then make that decision. But I almost feel like kind of playing on the edge of zone and kind of working your way in as opposed to playing for the God spot early. It's probably a better thing until you start to see a little bit more understanding of where these zones are going to go, because that unpredictability factor, before you know it, if you say you throw it all in on a fight to try and play for God spot, you win the fight and then you find the zone gets a bit funky and it's like, was that fight worth it? Because the risk to reward doesn't really pay off.
Yeah, sometimes you're forced into those scenarios depending on where your POI draft has you and where the zone goes as well. There's a lot of different factors that come into that equation. But DMS holding out 07 at the moment. They were the ones who were traversing from east to west, trying to get through survey camp. But if they do get through DMS, Passion are waiting on the train tracks as well. So this is going to be having to try and conquer 2 teams unless you can get past them here. But 07 at the moment, they're posturing themselves up against DMS, almost like they want to take this fight, and perhaps they feel like they have to.
I mean, 07 probably recognized that for a second there they had them sandwiched, and now it's become a little bit more isolated. They also maybe got a few armor checks and realize it's purple versus blue, which is a situation you certainly want to be in if you're the team who has those purple armor. So 07 have an opportunity to take that early isolated fight, like I was mentioning a little bit earlier. If they can do that, they're going to be in a great spot to aggressively rotate a little bit later, knowing they're going to be pretty close to reds. They're also going to hit the survey beacon, so now they are going to know it's isolated. This is a straight 3v3, and fully the advantage you have to say is to 07.
Well, it looks like 07, they've got that information though, but they also realize that they have a straight transition through the train tracks if they want to take it as well. So at the moment, they're kind of backing off and perhaps backing off into those train tracks. And they may have also seen a team arriving from Epicenter or at least in the surrounding areas. So they're just not really inclined to take that fight at the moment, as a lot of teams making their rotation into Skyhook as we expected. And Vex have actually found a pretty solid position here, and maybe an unexpected one.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams early on were actually thinking this is going to be pulling towards market, right towards the north. So a few teams had given up positions, and just the timing, I think, of the redeploy from the sky there has allowed Vex to hit the roof. They managed to see there was no one there. They were ready to fight when they dropped, but it's not just the roof they've got the whole building. Not even the first and second floor, I think, are going to be taken at the moment. So they have all of this to themselves, and 07, good news. They've made it over the mountain.
Yeah, that is at least a start for them, but they would have noticed there are 3 buildings that are uncontested at the moment, so they should be able to find a place to call home here, as long as they had remembered from that survey beacon who was where. And even though this building doesn't look fun at the moment, they should be able to comfortably get themselves in, because it is just caustic barrels. There is no one residing here.
Well, Amphy going to pop the Feeny Bobini, get himself up to full shields and full health before they plan their next rotate. But 07 in a very good spot, I would say. Having purple armors and knowing that they've done a little bit of damage along the way. Need to get a little check in a few seconds as well to see where those Evo levels are at and how close to red they are, because we know it is a bit of a jump from purple to red. But elsewhere you can see a couple of teams trying to fight their way through countdown at the moment. You're rolling teams who are trying to hold out players who are trying to work their way across this bridge.
And I think rolling teams, as long as they can hold this for a good, minute and force players to make a decision, there is potential KP here. The sad news for them is, where do they go afterwards? They can take that building that you can see on the southwest side, but they won't know that it's unoccupied at the moment, and it's just going to be one of those where you have to force your way in sooner or later. But the motherload gets popped, and it does look like players really want to take this fight.
Johnny Cash fans unite. Kazakh trying to make sure that he doesn't fall into the burning ring of fire, but elsewhere you can see the shots aren't quite connecting in the way that he'd wanted, and now there's a few shots coming in from elsewhere, a little bit of a swing coming in, and now players find themselves in a little bit of a rough spot. F2's going to go down as well, as rolling teams, well, they're living up to their name in the moment, because nobody has taken damage really, nobody has got knocks, and this should be another KP, and it should be easy for them to clean up.
Yeah, by name and by nature here, the last player of players just desperately trying to stay alive, and probably is going to survive here and should be able to at least rat out, but how long that's going to last for remains to be seen. Now rolling teams have a decision. Do they try and follow where that rat was going and go through the tunnel, which does leave you with a choke possibility, and a team could be there to ambush, or do they try and play on this southwest side, go round the mountain, and then try and find a building? It is going to be a tough call. I would imagine they're more likely to go west and take the building opportunity, because I think it's too difficult to go blind through the vault tunnel.
Well, Danish are holding the height here in Skyhook. Looking at where the zone is going to be pulling, it looks like it's going to be pulling towards the little compound just outside, just to the west of where they are holding it at the moment, more towards the trial side. And that's going to be a very interesting end zone, because there's not a huge amount of cover. There is one building that's going to be certainly fought for a little bit. as teams try and navigate towards that end game. FA Kids, they're going to be safe inside of this next zone, but they're going to have to rotate in a few moments' time. Zidane, though, he's already up to red armor, so he's going to be feeling very comfortable here on the Bloodhound.
Well, this was the rotation that was decided on this western side by rolling teams, and they have certainly found that it was not a comfortable one at all. They've already lost one player, but can they fight their way back here and maybe try and survive? At the moment, they are getting absolutely torched, and this is what happens when you go into one of these buildings blind.
Yeah, the problem is you can see that Cash doesn't have his ultimate available, didn't have a scan available either, and unfortunately, as soon as that smoke went down and the player went down, they were just sitting ducks. Rolling's teams, maybe not by name, maybe not by nature, as they only managed to roll 2/3 of one team in this game, but plenty more time to put that right. Full English now, they're making their assault. They want a third party this.
I wonder if it was too ambitious a rotation for rolling teams. Could they have just played a little bit more cautious on the edge? They kind of went in deep and were punished for it. Full English, though, they heard all this commotion happening. They wanted to get involved, and now they certainly are in the mix as well, and some good damage to start things off.
Love that from Life in, by the way. The confidence, just a little bit of a... Oh, that's why he was confident. Nice spray coming in. Unfortunately, it's going to be up to Sir Dell now to clutch. Does have that Peacekeeper to play with. Can do a huge amount of DPS if he has a reload, though. And now the Barry will be popped. Oh, Sir Dell. Oh, Sir Dell, that's unfortunate. You hate to see that. It pops up with a PK. The plan, you can see exactly what it was. The only problem was no ammo in the gun.
You pull the trigger, but nothing fires. Sadly, we've been all there before, as Gaimin Gladiators now will come in to just be cleanup crew here. Remember, they dropped over at Skyhook West, and they are going to be more than happy to see everyone finally arriving at their POI. Already 7 kills on the board for them. We haven't even got 4 squads. We've only got 4 squads rid of at the moment. We haven't even got to our top 15, so the fact they already have 7 kills is very impressive indeed.
Well, 07 a little bit further off those red evos than I thought. They still have a long way to go. We also see a respawn coming in. That is not someone dropping onto their first POI of the game. They're not arriving that late to the party. And it's going to be a respawn actually coming in here for players. So shout out to Kazak, managed to get his 2 teammates back into the game, but they have an extremely rough rotate. You can see the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Trying to walk up on FA Kids. Kneecap are trying to sandwich them as well. This is going to be rough.
The fact that players have got back up to a full 3 is incredible, but I think they've just been eliminated. As I say that, that's a commentator's curse. 15 squads now. Everyone's got a placement point. DMS down to just 2. Ultimates come down just to try and maybe survive here, but you can see the position they're in is such a vulnerable one. Not much room to play here.
Yeah, this is the compound I was talking about. There's not a huge amount of cover to play with. If you play it late, yes, you can play one of these walls. You can play some of the boxes. But with so many teams still alive, 15 of them, it just means that every single angle you feel like you're getting shot from. It's very difficult to hold down for the end game. You're kind of hoping that maybe you've got a legend which is going to help you to do so, but no Rampart, which is pretty much the only legend I can think of that's going to help you have artificial cover for more than a few seconds. Passion now making their move. They are playing underneath the central structure. Blacklist International, they'll be eliminated in the meantime. We're down to 13.
Notice how Passion are trying to keep moving. They are not staying stagnant here. They want to just always rotate and stay away from any potential shots. They do have the caustic to try and zone people out and not be pushed, but you are vulnerable from several different angles here, and they're just trying to work out at the moment which is the safest spot to play. It looks like under this bridge is going to be the ideal spot for now, but they will be a focus point for a lot of teams that are arriving, so they just have to be careful here.
I have a question for you. Did you ever watch that like reality program where people make cakes?
Yeah, is it cake?
Yeah, okay. I don't know what it's called. I could not tell you. But one thing I can tell you is that's what we're seeing the Apex Legends equivalent of right now with that central structure, because you have Danish, Passion UA, Exo Clan, and 07 looking to move into the tier of that cake. However, at the moment, 07 thinking, hey, actually, we're not hungry. We quite like this corner. It's going to serve us well. 13 squads remaining. What do they do next, though?
Real question is, does anyone want to take a bite of said cake, right? Because you've got 7 teams that are outside of the zone that will have to force themselves in. You can try and make that play to dive straight onto the structure, try and get on top of people, or inject yourself into the middle. But I don't think many teams are going to have that opportunity. A lot of squads are going to have to fight their way in from the edge here. This is the scenario where you have to be playing for kills.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's going to be a lot of teams calling right now. We play for KP, and we see what happens off the back of it. We see what spaces open up. If we play for a few KP and we see a third-party opportunity, that's our time to strike. Elsewhere, though, you can see the catalyst walls are going to go down, which means that the cover is going to be thin. It is going to be sparse, as we see Will now moving in, as Shex looks to get Shexy as he gets his Hemlock out, but he's not going to be able to get the knock, and now he's trying to survive.
So ANC Outplayed, who have found a victory already in a match day, can they now push themselves a little bit further? Look at the kill feed starting to explode. They were able to get from top 15, now closing in on top 10 just by walking in. They do get top 10, as we see 5 squads all eliminated at once.
Forbidden gone, Kneecap gone as well. DMS though, still trying to survive. A little bit of a hit fire coming in. FA Kids will be eliminated. DMS lose 1 though, as now they try and look for some more KP to secure some more points towards the end of this game. But here comes GG. This is the team who landed over at Sky West and now working their way in from the edge of all of this fighting, take control of the compound.
Look at the amount of kills that Gaming Gladiators have at the moment. So they lead the way and they are the leading team of this pack, but they are on the outskirts of Skyhook, or certainly of this zone at the moment. They are able to clean up the pieces below them, and they are the only team that are on the southwest. That is one of the beneficial things here. Everyone else is in that structure dead in the middle, so there is a real opportunity for Gaming Gladiators, if they don't get spotted, to maybe win this game.
Passion UA tried to get a respawn in there, I think, but it was so split from where the rest of the team were. It was kind of just like yeah, good luck. We'll see what happens to you when you get down. If you land, you land. If you don't, well, we'll play this one out as a duo. But Danish still up on this height, and they are going to be in for quite some time as well. The difficulties you always talk about, though, is what do you do from this position? Because at some point, you have to drop. The teams underneath can wait just a second longer, and as you land, with the lack of horizons, of course, in the compositions that we're seeing, your gun isn't up. You're going to take a little bit of stun, which means that you're not going to be able to fight immediately. That gives the teams underneath just that second advantage. Danish are going to be thinking, how do we play it from here?
I think my worry for most of these squads is, when do you move? If you move a second too early, you're going to be punished for it. The Gaming Gladiators want to go unseen as best as they can, because the other 3 remaining teams are all in the same position. You could see tiered, like that cake that you were talking of. But if all of them look at GG at the same time, as you say, I'm getting excited about thinking about cake, then GG will just be absolutely obliterated. And here they go. They have to use the smoke just to move in. There is crosshairs trained on them, but at the moment, they have dodged all said bullets.
It looks like they're trying to move up to those blue bins. The question is, do Danish have angles on them? Skynade's coming in as well. The Watson Gen should be good enough to keep those at bay, though. But Danish, they're going to have to make the move first. The Cowball's going to go down as well, which is allowing GG to move away from some of these lines of sight. Now they're trying to play as much space as possible. If GG can survive for around 10 seconds, 15 seconds more, then they will have an opportunity to win this game. But survivability is all they are worried about right now.
Yeah, all the ults starting to arrive, but I think GG are in one of the better positions, because they can reset behind this wall and watch all the drops. But sadly, the wall doesn't last long enough, and they're going to be the first focus point for some of these teams that have height.
Yeah, just caught out a little bit there. You see, they just didn't have enough cover. The wall maybe used a little bit earlier than it needed to be. They needed to survive, like I mentioned, for around 15, 20 seconds, maybe even, as young Hong Kong and crew up on that high ground are playing the height for as long as they can. And in the end, they don't really need to do anything, because the lobby takes care of itself. Some simple shots down in those final moments means that they will take home the win.
And Danish are going to be delighted with that, because you mentioned it. It's one of those scenarios where if you do put yourself in a position where you drop too early, your gun's not up, and you can get obliterated. But they were patient. They recognized that they didn't have to be the first team to drop, and they found just extra positions over and over on height. They were like, oh, we can take even more height here. Oh, we're still actually on height. They had the grenades. They had saved it for that moment. I think they recognized as soon as they saw that circle pulling towards them, then they just put themselves in a spot where they could utilize the grenades and everything else they had.
And again, it's a great example of what we're seeing in this season, right? We are seeing some end zones which we haven't really seen in the ALGS for quite some time, if at all. That's one that, if you're up on height there, you kind of, in previous seasons, maybe you get that height and you're thinking, this is a position we're going to have to rotate from. We're going to have to make another move from, and maybe a little bit more north towards market. But there, they didn't, like you said, they didn't have to do anything. The zone came to them. And that is a zone where if you're on that height and you're sat there for all that time and it's right beneath you, there's not really any excuse to not win that, as long as you're keeping yourself in a position where you have grenades available, like you're saying, and you're not putting yourself in a position where you just don't have ammo, for example, for shooting from height to clear up in that endgame.
Danish doing that all the way from Landslide as well. I mean, we spoke about POIs and some that aren't as successful as others. Yes, they were a little bit closer to Skyhook, but you would imagine that some of those teams that were dropping a little bit further northwest would benefit from it. But it was them finding that the top tier of the cake that you spoke of that finds them with 20 points from that match. But Gaimin Gladiators, who had the POI and they had the zone coming towards them, still put 19 on the board as well.
Yeah, very, very good game from GG as well. 10 kills, a standout in the lobby for sure. Like you say, means they end up with 19. Passion, another good performance from them, by the way. Still haven't managed to get their second place in their games. They do pick up another third, though. 8 kills to go alongside it as well. But at the other end, Alliance, very, very quiet for them. And we were saying, even though Survey Camp isn't what you would say is going to be in your tier 1 of POIs to pick in that draft, they did have some early Evo. They had a ring console. They would have known where that zone was going, and they just didn't make the most of it.
It was just that fight that we saw them lose. They tried to be aggressive. They wanted to take one of those positions. They had a building, but then they got pushed on said building and lost players, sadly, because of it. But I think as they look back, they will learn a lot of lessons from that one. As we can look at our top 3 teams and the statistics they were able to get through, the kills that the Gaimin Gladiators found, because everyone was just arriving at Skyhook one by one. They would pick people out of the sky. They would pick people out as they land. They were third-partying very successfully. So they'll be delighted with the amount of points they put on the board there.
We talk about young Hong Kong just dropping 2k damage as well. Very, very impressive from him. 5 kills is going to be his reward for it, as well as the 2 assists alongside it. So a strong, strong performance from him on the Bangalore. Elsewhere, you can see Passion there as well. A good amount of KP for them. 8 to go alongside their points, and a huge amount of assists as well. Team shooting beautifully.
And also, in terms of composition, 3 entirely different ones. You've got the Caustic, the Watson, and the Catalyst all coming in as your controller to try and do something a little bit different. All help with people in certain ways. The fact that Danish had that Watson, I think, allowed them to zone off a lot of teams that were arriving late to that building, whereas the Gaimin Gladiators, they had the ability to get that cat wall down just to zone off other teams as well, so they couldn't be seen. And we also saw how it benefited Passion holding the base of that tier, using those Caustic barrels to stop anyone from pushing in. So you can see how these controller legends really can impact your games.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see, isn't it? It felt like every single controller legend there had an impact on that end game. It was like, okay, what can the Catalyst do? Unfortunately, the wall didn't last long enough for them to survive. And then you're like, quite rightly, on the low ground, you can't drop, you can't push because of the Caustic barrels. And then if you're up on the height, who's going to zip up on you when you got the fences down and you got that gen as well to stop all of those sky nades? But game 1 is done. A very, very interesting game number 1. But when we get back, we've got plenty more ALGS coming your way. Don't go too far.
Alienware is the official PC and monitor partner of the Apex Legends Global Series. Welcome back to match day number 3. Game 2 almost upon us, but game 1 was a scintillating finish. Rain day here now with Dan Gaskin, who cast that one. You know, it was Danish, the Danish duo, Young Hong Kong, Fricks. They got it done, and it was a maybe an unexpected from my eyes. You know, we'll have a chance to look back at it, Dan. But for me, looking at this, it seems like, you know, Mark had said it, that the team on top typically would have to move earlier, but it didn't play out that way. And I think there's something to say about the way zones have been pulling this way. We've seen a lot of similar zones, but also they're slightly different, and teams that are really up to pace fast enough in this split are really taking advantage of it.
They were definitely blessed with the fact that the zone pulled this way and they could utilize the crates here on height. Had it just pulled, you know, slightly the other side, they would have had to drop off and they would have been dropping into a caustic barrel. We were just saying how the controller legends really have made an impact in that final circle in various different ways. But Danish, they would have been kind of blessed with seeing it move that way, but they also played it perfectly. And to do it from landslide, one of the less desirable POIs, they'll be delighted with that one.
One thing I want to figure out if you have any thought on, but it stood out to me, it was the Watson in that position particularly as well. I mean, it's no surprise Watson shows up from all of our regions as a successful pick in the ALGS, especially when you look at Reject Winity, who just won Split 1 playoffs, playing a Watson as well. But on high, it definitely cemented their position, and in many ways it kind of forces teams to, like, we could skynade that, but there's no point now, so let's just fight the teams below us, and that really worked in Danish's favor.
Exactly. I mean, what's one of the best ways to get people off height? It's using a Bangalore or using grenades. But if you have a Watson pylon down, you're not going to be able to take anyone off that height. So it really was the perfect position for them. But the fact they had got to that position via their rotation as well, they would have been delighted. They kind of just really forced their way into the zone and were rewarded for doing so. We'll have to see whether they can do something similar here. And Onset just brought up a fantastic point in the chat as well. Did they use the perk to generate the arc stars throughout? Because you could see at the end of the game, they had those arc stars and they were tossing them over and over from the height.
That's a great point as well. I mean, one of the things that, you know, we look at is the perk system that feels like old news, Dan. We've got the POI draft. We've got all of these things changing after our playoffs and new legends like Alter, new adjustments to the legends, taking caustic essentially out, but some players still using it, but putting Catalyst much more in the forefront of it. But those perks really still allow players to have a little bit of some spice to their gameplay. I love to see that, and even just the thought about it, really interesting stuff there as Danish take game one and we drop into game two here.
Sugar, spice, and everything nice. And now circle-wise, Evan, it is going to be potentially something similar here. I mean, it could pull still far north. It could also be something that is more around landslide here as well. No, we're going back to the same place. So if you are a team like Alliance, who genuinely, I think, picked Survey Camp because we've seen so many northern zones, again, they get a second chance for redemption here, right? They didn't really play it too successfully in the first game. They weren't in the correct building. Are they going to try and change things up here?
That's an interesting, you know, look at this season too. And it hasn't been something that's been off viewers' minds as well, and even our players. We've got similar zones, and even last weekend it was a bit of a theme. But how do you navigate that? In some ways it makes it easier for these players who know the things that they're going to have to go through. It's difficult from a rotation, but at least you know the difficulty you're going to face, and hopefully after game one, if you made some mistakes, you can bounce back and find a way to overcome them. You just don't want to repeat again and again and expect a different result. And Passion UA, they were here in this Skyhook area and only got 5 points, but still sitting in 7th. It's not a bad game, Dan. It's one of those games, though, that you'll be hoping to have a better result from, especially starting so close to where the zone usually ends.
Well, now seeing, you know, we're going to get a similar zone. Are they going to try and play this one differently? Will they try and play for that central structure, which was so prevalent and so important for some of those squads that got to the final 3? And we will have to see whether people are going to play things the same or just try and tweak things here. And a team we have to keep an eye on, of course, is Danish. They won the previous circle, which was similar. They're going to be trying to make, I would imagine, a very quick rotation from landslide. At the moment, they are in countdown, as Passion are going to get all this beacon information. Henchman does take a little bit of damage, but it isn't going to matter too much.
And just going to slide down as well. 20 squads starting out here in World's Edge. Different types of picks for these teams to elevate their game. Some teams, though, not prioritizing this map as well. And we've seen that work in some ways. We've seen it work miraculously for teams, though, who had a chance to pick late, didn't really prioritize World's Edge, and then ultimately ended up getting their most amount of points there. So it's really up to the play. Sometimes you just get things rolling your way as well. Blacklist International, they're looking to get a little bit more than they've got there as well. But I'm noticing just a lot of Watsons. I mean, even the crypto coming in as well, Dan. I feel like this split for sure has reset the meta a little bit, and teams still figuring things out. I don't know if there's a hard, fast line, except possibly Bangalore at this point.
Yeah, I think Bangalore Bloodhound seems to be the staple, and it's about what you play around it. Of course, you can swap and change every now and then, but consistency-wise and statistics would suggest Bangalore Bloodhound is a mainstay. Now, elsewhere, 07, they're making their rotation through. We saw them have an early fight in the previous game as well, which they then left. But it looks like they're kind of hunting players at the moment. Maybe they feel like they should be taking some of these early fights to try and get better armor.
Stop them in their tracks.
Tough spot. Speed rotating. And of course, the story with 07 is trying to find their rhythm. This new squad introducing with Zane, Nasky, and Amphi been doing their thing for a minute, but wanting to just get a little momentum. That's one of the hardest things to do, coming back from what Nasky himself said was really the worst day he's had in Pro League. Turning it around, getting something like a win, a big kill game. That could be all that matters to send them into the right spot, as we have a little fight happening here with DMS and Rolling Teams.
Well, Rolling Teams who were able to have a very successful fight in the previous game, but then were a little bit too aggressive with their rotation. Now it's going to be a real question of, do they play with the same kind of aggression in every fight they have today? Because when they got into the 3v3s, they looked very successful.
Bizarre. R99 carrying out. You don't see that weapon too much in this meta, but it can still do things like that. 57 hits flesh, peeks around the left and right corner. Nobody wants to give up these doors or push too far. RTS, though, has maybe made the biggest move. They've taken the stairs. Now looking to take a little bit more space. And they are going to get a scan off. That gives a lot of information. A couple of Prowler shots as well. That's bad. Catch almost goes down, though. And there's a big push there. Nice from Taskmaster. Rolling Teams now down one with the R99. Going to look to swing. Bizarre. What can he find? Nothing. It's another one from Taskmaster. Echo is going to fall, and Rolling Teams going to go down just like that to DMS.
Oh, look at the amount of health on Taskmaster. Just about survived DMS, and that's what Taskmaster is doing at his very best. He is a clutch player in those clutch moments, and now they should be able to reset. Players are kind of in the area, but not close enough to do any real damage. Sadly, that is one of the downsides of the R99 as well. Just the clip size. You are punished for it so often nowadays. Couldn't get enough damage with it. All the meanwhile, Alliance were also eliminated in the kill feed. So again, from Survey Camp, yes, they've chosen one of the kind of more questionable POIs, but they were close to zone, but they couldn't quite get into Skyhook successfully.
And now a lot of teams have already made that rotation. Players and DMS on that other side going to run into each other, most likely here. And so, can DMS continue? They've just reset. They've got a big fight. Will they have healed enough? And I think Kasanya and players, they're onto it. They know for sure. And they see it, they hear it, and they haven't fully healed up. And this is going to be tough for DMS. One of the risks of taking a fight like that is that you have to take another fight right after. And while you might have won that one, it doesn't look like they'll be able to get out of this one easily. Players know exactly where they are. Not enough time to Evo, not enough mobility to get out of there. Maybe just hoping Bangalore can lose the sense. But with a Bloodhound as well on players and a Fuse, it's going to be so difficult. And that's DMS out of the lobby. And players clean up what was a team coming from what they thought was a successful fight.
Yeah, players played that one extremely smart as well. They took their time where they kind of lulled DMS into a false sense of security, where they thought they were okay, they thought they could be able to reset, and then they just forced their way into that fight in the zone as well. I think that a lot of people could learn from that sometimes it is okay to dip your toe into the red and take a fight if you feel like you have the advantage, because not only now have they got extra KP, but also they're going to have all that loot and the extra Evo shield that they would have been desiring on the edge. They are one of the only teams who are outside of the circle at the moment, are players. The other two being Kneecap and FA Kids, but you can see Kneecap are trying to make a very interesting wide swing on that western side.
So how do you feel really about these positions in terms of, we see Passion taking that similar building, most likely spitting it with the other Passion, UA, which is only making things easier for us as commentators. But it looks like from the visual, they are on the high ground again. ExoClan kind of holding the trials area. I mean, sometimes I like to feel that if you can play from a position where you're not the first person, the first team that everyone's looking at, like I want your spot, there's a bit of an advantage to just staying out of line of sight. We'll see how it ends up working out, though. We do have a little bit of a clash from 07 here. This is big for them. 2 points, 13th place right now in the lobby. Had a bad day before. Definitely need this one to go right. And Amphi, he's the only one full health here, just holding corners and just trying to delay, give Nasky and Zane some time to get back up to full.
Yeah, you want to give Zayn the freedom to take fights, really. You want to be able to get aggressive because Zayn's such an incredible player who can do that damage, and they did get the opener here, so it should just be about cleanup crew and hoping no one else is in the area, as Forbidden are just going to try and escape. But this is the confidence 07 would have wanted to kind of breathe life back into their game, but Nasky's gone down. Vibes will get the knock, but there is a reply. That's where you need Zayn, right? Up close and personal.
And that's huge. He got the 1v1, and it was the one, I think, down below potentially, and so they're going to get the revive off. Now they're not going to push this 2v2, especially through a catalyst wall. It's a lot of resources used right there, especially since it is only getting closer and closer to a situation where they're going to have to fight again. But I like 07 in this position, and they're just going to chase off Plexus. It was a good 1v1 from Vipes, though, and I gotta say that's obviously an old school player, someone who's been around the block for a while, not going to lose fights easily. So 07 risked it, but they got what they wanted at the end.
Oh, FA Kids. Again, we're seeing the detriment of trying to force your way into zone with so many teams around in Skyhook. 2 of them have gone down. Will they get the chance to reset is the big question. Because there is no one in this building, but it's whether they actually decide to try and get aggressive on it. Zidane really got to take a desirable spot now just to try and avoid any confrontation.
Yeah, this is what you've got to do when it looks like you are going to be rotating late and people are going to come in on these empty buildings. If you have a spot, you have to apply pressure so that someone cannot comfortably get in here, and that's exactly what happened to FA Kids. All the other teams really playing the same game, saying we do not want you here. And former teammates, or at least former teams that have former teammates on them, Jay Savage and Phoenix, actually in that skirmish there. Zidane runs into the building and then runs back out, looking maybe to just heal up, get away. Now the distraction is there. Maybe he'll be able to buy some time, but FA Kids, I think, probably just hoping for some placement points at this point.
When you said all the other teams, I thought you were going to sing that song of all the other kids with the pumped up kicks that get around. And Zidane at the moment, he needs something, right? He needs someone to give him a bit of a confidence boost because he's just going to have to try and rat out in this position. You spoke about positions as well for both Passion teams here. I think after they saw what Danish did in the previous game, it was clear that the ideal position to be in is on top of that building in the center of Skyhook, because this zone looked near identical in certain areas. You're going to see they're going to be rewarded with it as well. Danish have not been able to get into the same spot this time, but we might see the zone going to be more north this time rather than pulling in the same way it did. But certainly Passion and Passion UA, 2 of the strongest positions in the game.
And they continue to make good decisions, and that's one of the reasons why we saw Passion have such a successful match day earlier on in match day. I believe it was match day number 2, but this is obviously a chance for them to showcase themselves as well. The stories for these 2 groups, ANC Outplayed, obviously Gaimin Gladiators, they've been successful teams at playing zones. And so what you can expect to see most likely in these lobbies, Dan, is just excellent zone play as well. It's really what's going to be the separation for when you get into these skirmishes. You arrive a little late. ExoClan feel like they can no longer play Trials, and they have to get in. This is going to be a tough one potentially, but let's listen in and see how it goes.
I got fucking shredded. Can it and we take it?
Okay. That's team in both, I think, or the split hold in. I'm scanning.
I'm gonna win.
There's one guy in there.
Alright, just study for the moment, study for the moment. We got fucking naded. It's fine. We're good.
Chill the nade.
Yeah. We fine. Just chill.
Okay.
How long for a scan? We need to go for the spot. We need to go for the spot.
Yeah, I'm scanning. You wanna go?
Yeah, go fight.
Looking at the mid.
Come. We're good.
He's picking. Come on. We find you. Play.
Careful,
Good. Play here on me. Here on me. We just stop for the moment. Yeah, dropping bats. You don't have any bats?
No, I have one now.
Alright, careful from the top right window, gents.
Yeah,
Don't break it.
I'm smoking that. We're good.
Don't play it. It's bad, really bad. We just stop.
I'm going low.
Yeah, I think bottom's.
I think bottom is better.
The team playing on my
Yeah.
I'm scanning back.
Well, K-Swinny, an IGL who likes to do it. We've seen him with the buy one blade on Crypto, getting one of our, I think, championship or split playoffs highlights. And now he's on the Newcastle. Dan, obviously, no Bryn, but a team that feels like at least they've done the hard part of this lobby and get into a decent spot here in the zone.
Very important as well. If you're playing in Newcastle, of course, you don't have the controller ledge and you're instead playing support. So you're not going to have ring console information. It's all going to be off that survey beacon from Bloodhound. So they have to maneuver the way around the map based off of what they see from other teams. And that's where you have to be prepared to fight. And you heard it in the listening. They said, look, we're going to fight. Let's move together. But as soon as they noticed that there was a slight opportunity to just dip past the other team and take position, that's when you have to back out. And it was great communication from them to just kind of say, on me, we are safe. We don't need to take it right now. And we could just focus on holding this spot. Now, zone-wise, it is going to be moving slightly more north as expected. Those crates that Danish won it from on top of that building won't come into play for the final circle this time. So if you are on height, you are going to have to drop a little bit sooner than we did see in the previous game.
And I think most of these teams at this point have to be thinking, well, how do we now maneuver this? Because that area, as much as it's not going to be in zone, is going to be in this next zone. And that means that ANC Outplayed, Stay Healthy, 9 Lives, Full English, Danish, Gaimin, Gladiators, as they move in, are going to have 3 teams in that central building able to shoot at them and make their lives difficult. So while they might have gambled on the southern side here, it has not paid off, and they're going to have to find space in what is going to be a very limited, very contested area. But the Full English certainly looking to find some rhythm. VexX joining this squad of Dell and Lifen, breaking up Forge Gang. I mean, they had a decent performance, still hit, I think, about 12 or so in that first showing. Can they do something different here? Just scouting out on the first evac. Gonna have to move soon now, though.
16 teams, and I predict they're about to go down to around 10. We've already lost 1 because the zone is going to force a lot of these squads in with very little playable space, excuse me. Great shots from the Havoc. That's why you Havoc. And that's why you need to have someone who is comfortable using it, as Danish will be eliminated. We will not see them go back to back. They couldn't get into the comfortable position as Outplayed also go down. And this is what I was talking about. Bombardments everywhere. People struggling to get in.
So difficult as well. Gaimin Gladiators trying to stay alive. They'll fall. And it goes from 16 to 11. 5 down. Maybe 1 more about to go. Yekwe is being very careful, but has found at least a little bit of respite in the chaos that has just occurred. And look who shows up. It's Vibes back again. Hanzo and Thorfinn, this team has come back alive after that skirmish, and they found a way, 9 lives, to use one of those 9 lives and figure out a decent spot here in this final zone. What a turnaround for them after initially losing Vibes.
You also saw ExoClan arguably in one of the more powerful spots in the moment, one of the few buildings that are going to be inside this next zone. All these teams on height are going to have to move at the same time. If you are behind it all, a team like Vex, a team like Full English, there is an opportunity you could maybe pick off the teams as they are leaving the building. 07, again, they could do something similar from below, kind of wait for teams to drop, then take the fight and then move. But they are also very close to being within that circle, so they might just play as close as they can to the next circle as possible and hope that teams will drop on them.
There's no doubt ExoClan seem to be, alongside Kneecap, who are sharing that building with them, in the best spot. I mean, they've got the Newcastle, they're set up, they're a full 3. All these teams are way too distracted with just surviving right now. And so ExoClan, they're in a great spot. Keep an eye on them as well. 9 Lives Esports, they just got that win. They've been able to restabilize with the Watson gym, but they'll have to move outside of that wall. But outside of that, they're in a pretty decent spot as well in terms of angles. But look at this Passion, not allowing players to make it out easy with the Sentinel. Max Strafe looks for 1, misses, tries to get it out again, and he's got 7 bullets in the tank, 3 as well in case he misses a few. And it's 2 down now. It's going to be tough, but Passion trying to just get as much damage as they can before they have to drop.
This kill feed's going to light up once more because look at the amount of playable space. It is a lack of it. You've got a few things you can hide behind as you're going to arrive into this circle, but everyone on this building, look at them. They're going to be forced now into the same area at the same time. They're going to cling on to whatever edge they can play for right now, but then you have to take fights. In 07, they do see the drop, but they've already lost 2.
Oh my God, Nasky here. He's got to do it. A little wall bounce as well. Throws the smoke. Wow, something special about to happen here. We don't know. Nasky's ready to do it, though. He's got the Full English right in front of him as well. A little bit of Passion UA. And we see the overview. Full English will take that one. Passion UA will go down. Nasky will get the res. He's got to push Full English. Does Nasky feel confident? He's got a shield swap there. Not going to take it. Maybe there was nothing there. And he's got the Havoc. He peeks. This is a big play. And he has to run away. He didn't get the damage. And this is just going to be using the knockdown shields. Somehow, Dan, it's still going on. And Nasky is still alive.
Yeah, great movement. Sadly, couldn't connect with the shots to really try and get a benefit from that push he was trying to make, but at least he's staying alive. Got himself into the top 6 now, and it's about placement points for 07. Clearly, you're not going to see them be able to get a lot of kills from this spot, but maybe you will be able to get into the top 3 as players more than happy to take this fight as well. Full English get eliminated, and we're down to our top 5.
Does he push this, though? Is this where Nasky comes back into play? Look at this. Look at the movement there. I think that's Nasky as well. Just incredible stuff here from players as they will try to hunt down what's looking like the EMEA movement god over here. Nasky still tap-strafing his way around that Catalyst wall. ExoClan in a great spot. K-Swinny on the Newcastle. He's got that mobile shield, and he's just moving it back to his team, giving them as much room as they can, making it difficult to push. And that just might open up the door, but they're fighting against the zone, and they go down after an amazing push from Kneecap there.
Nasky's still alive at the moment for 07. And is he healing himself in the smoke as well? He might have the perk to be healing himself in smoke, which is really helping his Kneecap will also fall. Nasky gets the job done, and Nasky's still doing God's work right now. Still alive into the top 3.
This can't go on much longer, but what a valiant effort there from Nasky to put himself in a top 3 position. We saw this once before. I'm not going to jinx it, but there's a little man named Hardeki, and he found a way in this type of situation to be the one to come out on top. It will not happen here. It was wishful thinking, but Nasky to get a top 3 after his whole team went down at top 6 certainly seems like he is sticking to his word to play much better this time around. 9 Lives Esports, they went down early. Vifes, he was the one who was taken down, but now he goes down first again, and his teammates who have found a way to revive him there. Hanzo's gonna get 1, but he will not get the second. It is players who will come out on top in our match day number 3, game 2.
All the way from Big Maud, players moved early, and against the odds, they get into a skyhook zone, and they capitalize from such an incredible position that they did force their way into. We have to give credit where credit's due, though, for Nasky for getting into the top 3 as well, doing a merry dance and the movement that you were talking about, one of the benefits of playing on mouse and keyboard.
And I think, too, in the chaotic situations where you get out of predictability and you go into, well, what's happening? I'm just moving, I'm playing. That's where you can see a lot of individual skill, game sense come into play. We know Nasky has that. Bad performances do not make a player, and we know how much he's been a consistent performer. But also, 9 Lives and players kind of come from these 2 difficult pathways, losing a player early in a skirmish and then also coming in all the way from Big Mod and finding that success on players' side. So it's really been who can withstand the difficulty, the pathways the most, and also who maybe got a little lucky, because I think the other element is that 9 Lives came in from that northern side. They got that kill and then took that small wall where a lot of teams, Dan, they just committed to kind of playing exactly that same space that the first zone ended, but the poll just did not go that way.
Yeah, I think people were expecting, I mean, it wasn't exactly the same zone, but we knew it was going to be somewhat similar, and
close.
You are going to try and replicate what has just found success for other teams, and it was on top of that 3-stack building. Sadly, you're forced a little bit further north, and those who had to fight very aggressively at the start to find that northern position were eventually rewarded. But in a zone like that, when there's not much playable space, it's about, do you have the ability to either create cover yourself, or can you find a position where other teams can't quite find an angle on you? I thought maybe ExoClan with the Newcastle might have been able to do something there. You can always get an interesting pick with Newcastle when you find yourself in those zones, but sadly, they got sandwiched as well.
I mean, why do you think, I mean, the Newcastle was good, but did it show enough for you? Why do you think the Newcastle didn't work out in that situation? Because you look character-wise, a character who's got his own cover, who basically has another piece of cover in the mobile shield. That's kind of the situation it's designed to work for as we take a look at the match results. Give me your thoughts on that, and obviously the scores here from players.
I think if Newcastle Wall was a 360 rather than a 180, then we would be having a very different conversation. But when you can only face it one way in a zone like that, there's too many teams around you, and sadly, there's too many angles that you can be shot from, and they weren't really able to get in a position that they could truly call home at any point. But they'll still be delighted to get a little bit further in the game. But you can see with a lot of the fights being avoided, when we heard those comms, they were saying, look, let's move here. We don't need to take this fight because we found this position. They only pick up 4 points. Could they have had a better game had they got a little bit more aggressive at certain times? But for players, for 9 Lives, and for 07, huge games, massive points.
Massive points as well. 07 off of that top 3 is actually going to take second place overall in this game. So shout out to them as well. 3D Max, we know that they need to perform, sitting at 0 points so far. Well, now they've got obviously a little bit to push them into hopefully closer to the top 10 of at least today's match day. We've also got ANC Outplayed, who didn't have a great game, but also coming away with 4 points. Danish as well, who got taken out early, still with 3 points total. It's not bad, but Alliance, DMS, rolling teams, DMS, the rare team in that mention with just 3 points from an early fight. Alliance and rolling team still nothing here as we get it going. Our players who performed at a high level though on players with 23 points, Dan, Sanya, Faitu, and Kazakh.
Quite interesting, really, that players and 07 both get to the final circle as well, considering they were down in that southeast side and could have potentially had a scrap early on, but they did not. They avoided one another in the end, and players are able to get into that zone. Good damage all round, and I think they will be more than happy with the position they find themselves in. To get a win on the board, it just gives you that confidence going into match number 3 here.
And it's honestly the difference, though. We have seen teams in EMEA take the whole day without getting a win. I'm not sure if we will see that continue. All right, Rene Gaskin here. We'll bring back Onset as game number 3 is right around the corner.
Herman Miller is the official chair partner of the Apex Legends Global Series. Welcome back, everybody, to the ALGS Pro League. And I tell you what, EMEA has been going north, and a lot of Skyhook has been seen so far. The question is for me, as we head into our final game of World's Edge here, before we change maps, Dan, is will we see a little bit more in our end game of another part of World's Edge?
I thought you were going to be like, will we see Skyhook again? We might, honestly, with a pattern emerging like that. But I think one key takeaway for me was that people are very suspicious of where the zones are going, and as soon as they saw something similar, the priority spots that were in game 1, everyone's like, well, we should get there because that's going to be the priority spot for game 2. Wasn't the case, because even though the zone is very similar, the final circle can be so different with how everything is going to be played, and sadly those teams who did commit to some of the positions that would have been good in match number 1 were not great in match number 2.
Yeah, one thing to point out here as we see this final fight going down as well is I just want to give a shout out to Naski, because there's a few things that we haven't really mentioned so far, right? And we haven't even mentioned perks and things like that, but I think the fact that he had the health regen that he was using in the smokes as well kept him alive for just a few seconds extra to allow a couple of shield swaps, a little bit of extra movement. That little bit of extra HP was so important for him to be able to avoid a few of those gunfights and rat out to those final placings for him. But you're quite right. Even though you're saying, hey, that's almost exactly the same zone, the fact is like a couple of feet away from where the first one was, it just changes the complexion of how that end game is played as well as the approach to it. But as we head into game number 3, the question is, like I mentioned, will we be going back to Skyhook? And my question also to you is, Alliance looking like on paper it was a genius pick to go to Survey Camp off of their POI draft, but they have not made the most of what is quite a good rotation for them in these first 2 games.
Yeah, I think Alliance in particular will be kicking themselves with where these zones have been. We didn't get to see it on our screens in match number 2 with the fight that they took, but We'll have to see whether things can change for them and whether it's going to be a different zone for them in match 3. This is how the series results look at the moment, though. Players, they force their way to be tied in first place with Danish, but very quickly and closely followed by Gaimin Gladiators.
Yeah, impressive stuff from Naski in those final moments of that game number 2 means that some more points on the board here for 07 as well, which is, like he said himself, it will not be as bad as performance as what we saw in match day 1 from them. And there was that kind of feeling, I think, in the movement that he was managing to pull off in those final moments, that he was just thinking, you know what, I'll do it myself. And that's pretty much what he did in those final moments. 9 lines in behind them as well, but no point sponges after 2 games down. It means it's very, very close as we head into our match number 3 here on World's Edge.
Yeah, 2 difficult zones to try and find a lot of points, I feel, because even if you are a Skyhook team and teams are starting to come to you, you can only do so much without showing yourself too much to other angles as well. Because if you get too aggressive in any of those buildings, you're just going to invite other squads to start to get involved as well. So yes, you can see points picked up, you can see kills picked up, but it isn't easy to sponge them for sure.
Well, here we go then. Match number 3, the final World's Edge game of the day. Before we change our surroundings and we change what we're going to be looking at and head over to Storm Point, interesting for me to see where this zone is going to be going. Although I will say, Dan, even though we've had the Skyhook zones, it's not necessarily been the wins coming in from the teams who have been dropping over the north. Some teams have managed to make really strong rotates, like players in that last game coming all the way from Big Maud. That's a really strong rotate for them, and it does look like we're going to go maybe a little bit central, maybe a little bit south here. Those ring consoles are going to be important, and Lava Siphon's got one, and 07 have got one as well.
I think it's evident that the 2 final circles were difficult to read, even for the teams like Gaming Gladiators, like Passion UA, who find themselves at Skyhook, because you mentioned it, it's Danish, it's players who found victories from Landslide and Big Maud, arriving late and forcing their way into zone and being able to take some of the positions away that weren't necessarily as desirable as first thought from those who dropped in. But circle-wise, well, we're going over towards like the edges of Fragment and Geyser here, so if players can do it from Big Maud all the way up to Skyhook, they'll be licking their lips perhaps when they eventually get said information of where they will be going. But it's a case of when will they get that information, really, because at the moment they don't have access to a ring console or a survey beacon.
Yeah, I look at that zone and I gotta be honest, I'm not 100% sure where that's going, because the backside of Geyser, that's not inside of the zone. You're probably looking at maybe the Hill House being a possibility of somewhere to hold. The chokes, of course, are going to give you a little bit of flexibility, but it could also pull out towards Fragment a little bit more into that open on those rocky areas just to the north of where we saw that zone going. So a little bit of a tough one to read here for teams. And I will say that if you have a ring console, that is going to be valuable information for you. The one thing that Blacklist International do not have over at Geyser is that ring console. They do have the survey beacon, but that's not going to give them the information they want.
Yeah, not going to help right now. If they can hold that area for a little bit, then maybe the survey beacon will come into play. A team that did have info was 07, by the way. They dropping down towards Lava Siphon, they hit that ring console, and now they're moving close to the Hill House, but at the moment they are staying a little bit closer to Lava Siphon on the edges, and I imagine they will eventually move towards the Hill House area. Full English are then going to follow up and also get ring console information, but it's players who, players did have ring console information from Big Maud. It was being blocked by one of them, so players, another team that will also know now where they need to be moving.
I worry if Blacklist International, by the way, who dropped over at Geyser, who have now gone out their way to hit a second survey beacon, are going to think, we are unfortunate here, boys, because a lot of teams are overtaking us to spots that we could have had. You can see that 07 have decided Hill House is where they want to play. So that gives a pretty good indication of where they believe the end zone is going. You can see a couple of teams also rotating away from the Fragment side of the mountain range, and Blacklist International are behind 2 of those teams now. 3 of those teams, arguably, as players have already moved into Geyser. So it just shows how one bit of information, one ring console, could completely change what your path is going to be for the rest of this game.
Yeah, 3D Max are going to opt to take one of these chokes. There's 2 chokes you can hold. I mean, technically 3 if you want to go vault side as well, but that would be a dramatic pull away from zone. I do think that some of these squads who have moved early, as long as they've got controller legends like a Watson, for example, they should be able to comfortably hold said position. But a lot of them that have moved early are just on blues, and you've got to imagine that some of the later movers will be on purples and might just try and take that fight against you.
It'll be tough to take those fights, though, with so many teams already. You can see, I think we've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Almost half the lobby is inside of where that second zone is going to be. So even able to force your way in, you're looking for third-party opportunities. You're going to have to bide your time just a little bit more than you would maybe if there was a little bit more cover to play from. But 07, we mentioned how they had ring console and they found their spot to play. They're going to be very, very comfortable. However, one team that is not comfortable, and I should say looking extremely uncomfortable, is going to be rolling teams, because Catch has gone down, and losing the Bloodhound is always an awful thing to happen in these team fights.
Yeah, it's Blacklist International that are on the other side of this fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if they start to get aggressive and try and push up on things, but they have to be aware of other teams in the area as well. You can see there are more squads than just the team they were fighting.
Of course, the barrel's going down. Catalyst Q's going down as well. They want to try and force in here. They want to try and finish this fight, but 0-0 has gone down as well, and that's because Blacklist International will also get a little bit of help from distance here from DMS, who are moving up on this fight. And if you're wondering why everyone is here and why everyone is fighting for this, the survey beacon on top of this building is kind of prized, right? It's not only going to give information, it's giving Evo as well. So a lot of teams are finding themselves all of a sudden fighting for it, and now fighting for it, essentially keeping themselves alive in this game.
Yeah, a lot of teams didn't have access to a survey beacon in the surrounding areas, so they are trying to get this one, trying to play this one, but then they are welcomed by 3 or 4 other teams that had exactly the same thought process here. And instead, we get a little bit of a standoff because there are so many squads. They've realized we can't actually take this fight. We can't actually get aggressive. We instead just maybe need to kind of sit here and wait and hope and pray at this point, because suddenly you find yourself in a position like this for Passion, and where do you go from here? What is your game plan?
It's going to be a very interesting zone, this one, because even 07, who we've mentioned a few times now, who probably had the prio to the position they would have wanted, if it does shift to the north and away, then they've got a rough rotate to go through the choke and up north towards Fragment. So it could be one of those where if you're coming in a little bit late and you get zone 3 info on one of those survey beacons, it could be, ring consoles. It could be one of those situations where it's like leaving it late is actually better in this game than approaching a little bit earlier on.
Something I do want to touch on is we mentioned Full English. They got the ring console scan after 07. A very different approach from Full English. They went all the way down to the southeast, went down to the vault as well. So instead of trying to chase one of the priority positions, they instead are going to be playing edge and just looking to try and maybe pick up some kills and get a little bit further on those Evo shields before they join any sort of position hunting like everyone else has done. And I guess when you see a circle like that, that can be the best decision sometimes, saying we don't really know where it's going to go, so maybe let's just play this one a little later and get another scan later on.
Taskmaster was trying to be a little bit aggressive here on the Bangalore, trying to move up on this fight that we saw breaking out a little bit earlier on. He was a bit split from his team, but the wonderful thing about being on Bangalore, of course, is you can use those smokes and the double time to get back to your team. You can overextend a little bit more than some other legends, so making sure that he's utilizing everything that Bangalore does provide to try and get a few kills for his team. But it looks like a change now of decision. They are pinging that ring console. They want to get that next zone information, and it could be key.
Could be key, should be key. I think everyone's thinking the same thing. Yeah. Everyone thinking the same thing of where is this zone going? No one really knew, and you could tell by how sporadic the positions are for all these teams. And we've just got the information on our map overhead, but there's a lot of squads who wouldn't have had that information just yet, and it is going to be shifting north. So 07, who had that prediction, who had the priority spot, you mentioned it. They have to move further north now through either chokes, which are both being held by Watson teams. Not going to be fun.
That's rough. I'm going to say it is rough. It's one of the reasons that I feel like playing that house sometimes with where the zones kind of, they do shift a lot from that position. It's very rare that you'll see them ending up actually in and around there. Although I am seeing some zones that are being more and more rare than previous seasons and splits. It just leaves you in a position where if you don't get it 100% right, your next move is so tough. DMS now coming in to fight around the beacon building. Can they make the most of it?
Great shots from the Havoc, and with the Hemlock to follow up, but it is going to be a trade. Passion get eliminated in the kill feed all the meanwhile, and DMS might get me the opportunity here to res, should do so, and it's going to be perfect for them. They now hold that building. A great push and a great sign of knowing when to be aggressive and when to be passive.
Yeah, it's them taking out Passion. So Passion are going to be eliminated after a good start to the day. It's not going to be game number 3 that they look back on as one that's going to give them the fondest of memories. Gaimin Gladiators looking to force their way into the zone as well. And you can see that Blaster's already managed to get himself up to a red Evo. As the fight continues, let's jump into a listening with GG.
There were 2 teams here, by the way. One was on the...
They're already there on my ping.
Okay, need to shoot them away.
Shoot them.
Buff you.
Yeah, I'm gonna pop on and then go look.
It's the fucking... It's the fucking... Newcastle.
Newcastle.
I'm popping accelerant.
Triple take Newcastle.
Coming towards you.
Purple.
Might try to fight us. I have a bungle still.
I'm looking. They're in front. They're smoking. Yeah, walking up. They're looking for us. I'm needing that. I'm needing it.
Bangle bridge.
I'm needing good. Yeah, I'm
Gaining. Right side, you can dodge, I think.
Okay.
Cannot see anyone.
I'm trying to dodge this bangle.
Running back.
I'm dodging. Scanning.
Yeah.
Here, my ping.
Run back. Get left choke. Flying
Again.
Flying.
Should be fine. Don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry.
I'm right about
Give me
that. Let's go.
An enemy landed near.
That's not that, Tomas.
They are going there.
Okay. Look choke, Blast. Look choke, very well. Looking at us.
Scanning. Me too.
One. Need to kill that one. Okay.
Couldn't be lower.
I'm healing.
I need that team might come back, by the way. I need.
I can look at them.
Look at stay like here.
Okay, I have my
Push them
ult.
back. Can you push them back, Blast?
Yeah, 5 seconds to scan. I want to wait for scan. Right side. I can't like stop that.
Probably all of us, because they are playing close. Come.
Okay, I'm scanning.
Close left. No, look, picking it down.
Okay. Just get don't like.
I will say, Dan, that GG give us a great example there of head on a swivel. How many directions and teams you have to be aware of if you're holding down one of these points of contention when you know that multiple teams are going to be moving in from edge.
Yeah, they tried to get aggressive, but then they noticed that EXO are arriving from behind, so they quickly have to turn, and now they're going to engage. They've got good initial damage here. Can they follow up with it?
I was going to say, it's such a good catwall as well, because they managed to isolate one player. Lufka's going to drop down, and that is what catwalls can do in the aggressive capacity. We always talk about them being a defensive tool a lot of the time to allow you to rotate, to keep your opponents at bay, but if you can split a team who are trying to rotate in, it gives you the freest kill possible, and GG use it perfectly.
Well, GG on the hunt again, but behind them, there's always a bigger fish. The full English are there and waiting, and if they're not careful, they might get caught off guard here. So Gaimin Gladiators need to be careful. They do spot them, and they do get the turn here. A good 80 damage from Light, and now GG, they can start to engage if they would like to on full English.
Good damage, gonna jump up here. Do they have enough damage to go up against that Havoc that was ready to fire? Doesn't get that initial knock, but is it enough to allow his teammates to move up, and they should be able to bat and heal from here. Bangalore going to come in as well. Lufka's trying to take a little bit of an off angle to avoid it, but does get stunned, so he's going to be out of that fight for a few extra seconds, but it looks like Blast has done enough damage to force that team away.
Yeah, Blast was able to get the kill onto Lifen, so that means that full English are going to have to back off here, but that does then allow Kneecap to re-engage, and Gaimin Gladiators at the moment just back and forth, but are somehow doing enough damage to keep everyone away. But Kneecap now say, look, we've got the Havoc, we've got the position, we've got the high ground, perhaps we can get involved, but no, Blast again getting the damage.
Blast doing so much good work and so many vital opening picks in these team fights that just allow them to stay alive a little bit longer and feel like they're in the ascendancy. Now they can push. Funk is going to find out that things aren't feeling quite as musical as they were a few moments ago, but maybe they can turn it around, stay healthy, eliminate in the meantime. And now Funk trying to push in, trying to clean up the damage, but again, they're going to be able to hold. But here comes the rest of the full English now. This has been absolute carnage on this western side.
Yeah, Gaimin Gladiators cannot catch a break, and now the zone is going to play another part in it. As a 2, what can the full English do? But Alliance are just round the corner, so even if you win this fight, where do you go? And Gaimin Gladiators will get eliminated. The zone was just ticking too much for them, but Alliance should be able to clean up the rest of the pieces of the full English. You know, the little bit of the black pudding that's left, a little bit of sausage, maybe a baked bean. Alliance will be more than happy to try and grab this.
A singular baked bean was all that was left. That's my poetry for today. Alliance, though, trying to clear out this west side, trying to make sure that this is the zone behind them with no one else rotating in so they can play with their backs to zone knowing they are safe. A huge opportunity here for Alliance as they will have great priority to this zone. Their next point of call is going to have to be to hold out the teams that are coming in from Fragment. Forbidden eliminated in the meantime. Full English will be eliminated as well. It's 12 squads remaining, and no surprise, Dan, with this kind of zone, with such little cover, to see so many teams having to be aggressive and trying to take fights.
And it's even going to get worse as K-Swinny, as the Newcastle goes down. Exo Clan get eliminated. 11 squads now remain, and look where the zone is going. So there's only 2-3 teams that are within this next circle at the moment. Everyone else is outside, and 2 of those squads are Danish and FA kids who are holding the same building together.
I will say it was quite amusing there to see the mobile shield for K-Switty moving up behind him, and it was almost like his tombstone as he went down as the final player from Exo Clan. But inside of this building is going to be Danish. Only on blue shields at the moment, still a fair way away from those purples. Still need 450, 500 or so damage for each of the teams to get to purples, and maybe the opportunity is going to take itself now. They try and push in, try and get this damage, try and clear out everybody who's on this southern side. They need to win this fight if they want to force their way to end zone.
Danish only have the blues at the moment, but that could change if they can win the fight, but they are struggling. Young Hong Kong does go down, so now it's just down to Sherb, who falls. 10 squads remain. Danish will be eliminated, and FA Kids come out on top. But ANC Outplayed maybe can now start to get aggressive on this one if they feel like there is weakness over on this side.
Well, at the moment, you can see the Sheks is just trying to hold their back, making sure that nobody's walking up behind them. There wasn't a clear opportunity to third party and clear all of that side out, but they will have to deal with that team in a few moments' time. Team starting to evac in as well. You can see trying to smash their way into the center of zone. Multiple teams landing at the same time by the looks of things. 07 is going to have to fight them off, but it was 07 who actually, excuse me, were the ones who did land, and now they're hurting off the teams who are trying to move in on them.
And this was the area you were talking about right at the start of the game of where we might end up. We have seen zones won here. Actually, I think we saw an online championship won in this final circle as well. But 9 Lives, you can see how much the zone is starting to hurt them. And it looks like Jay Hanzo, a last desperate attempt, is not enough. 7 squads now remain. That was 3 teams who all got ripped apart as the zone closed in.
Well, teams that are remaining, you see ANC Outplayed, FA Kids, 3D Max, Rolling Teams, 07, DMS, and Alliance. As 07 make the approach late to this central area where you have these crates for covers. It's a place you don't want to play early, but if you can get here late and you can time your push, then it is one of the best places to play towards this end game. Elsewhere, you see DMS trying to move up from the southern side. Only 1 rock to play for them to give them cover, and 07 are trying to focus them.
So really struggling a little bit with being able to press anyone at the moment, and there are 3 different teams that are all in this area. DMS are taking a lot of damage, and 07 trying to capitalize on said damage, will do so, and they get eliminated. But can 07 reset? It looks like yes, but 3D Max are in the area, so 07 need to move fast here.
Yeah, 3D Max are here. Alliance will also have a little poke, so even though they played for the kills, it might come to cost 07 because there's a Devo in the vicinity. The Devo feeling devious. Eva ain't in the back pocket as well. This man loves a care package, and he loves kills as well.
3D Max were just waiting in the wings to try and do some damage here. And boy, have they done said damage, but there is a last-minute hold from 07. It's a brave one, but not brave enough to keep them alive. Now Alliance will pick up the pieces. 3D Max, can they fight them off? No, they cannot. 3 squads remain, and 2 of them are currently in the choke. Alliance in the best position right now.
FA Kids just got eliminated as well, so it's a 3v3 by the looks of things, and they're trying to reset ANC Outplayed. Alliance recognize this fight just took place, and they are desperate to move up on this and take an opportunity that doesn't present itself very often. It's a free endgame for them. It's a free fight, and Alliance, who have been quiet so far, well, now they're about to make some noise.
Easy victory for Alliance in the end, but it was so well worked to find the position that they were in, and then being aggressive at the right time. It was a struggle bus in matches 1 and 2, but now it pays off here in match 3 with a big victory and a solid amount of kills.
One of the biggest moments of that game, I think, for Alliance when it comes to confidence is just clearing out that western side where we saw GG holding on for so long, trying to navigate their way through 3 or 4 different teams who are trying to move through that choke. Alliance were the last team standing on that side, and then were able to just pick the third parties, knowing they had completely cleared one side. Everyone else had to work through that choke, had to work from the eastern side through towards them, and Alliance can let a lot of that damage happen before they capitalized. And I will say, the timing from them and how quickly they eliminated the final players down on that south side, even though the fuse ult got eaten, I mean, that allowed them to move up onto ANC Outplay, knowing damage had been done, and that is about as free as a fight as you'll get in a straight 3v3.
Yeah, I think the fact that Alliance were able to add so much damage to all the fights that were happening around them gave them the comfort to push in when they did, because they knew they were going up either against 2 players or against players that were weak. Now, 6 kills, solid amount, as I mentioned, puts them on 18 points, much needed points for today, but we still have to give credit to ANC Outplayed, FA Kids. I mean, look at the points for the top 6 teams, right? Everyone above 10. We spoke about it. No real point sponge games. Everyone kind of sharing things at the moment. It is a difficult lobby to try and dominate.
I will say as well, 07 from the position they probably thought, hey, we've got God spot early on here, to where they managed to end up and picking up KP alongside the placement points they managed to get. I think they'll be pretty happy considering how that game went from feeling pretty good in the first few moments to feeling pretty rough about halfway through. DMS are just behind them as well. They picked up 8 KP as well, and then, like you say, it kind of falls away a little bit after them. And down at the bottom, Passion, who had a good start to the day, a quiet game here, and the same can be said about GG.
Well, GG, 6 kills. They'll still be happy with that, especially considering the position they found themselves in, where it quite literally felt like Gladiators. It was one team after another team after another team. They were stood in the center of the Colosseum saying, who else is next? But there was sadly just one extra team, and the zone got involved for them. But they still played it effectively, maybe just had to be a bit quicker moving out of their position so that they weren't touched by the zone.
Well, welcome back, Rain Day, the world's most handsome man. It's an official title. I've given it to you.
Thank you.
There you go. Congratulations.
I haven't had a title yet. You know, that's a kind of a European thing. We don't have a lot of titles in the US. I like that one, though. I'll take it. Thanks, guys. You know, it was a great game, and I love watching Alliance in that moment. I was kind of waiting for them to wake up, and I feel like they finally have. And it was so interesting, too, to see the different styles, and maybe what is becoming and has been a bit of a staple in the EMEA type traditional, you know, kind of slower pace, not as many aggressive, go out and just slay the entire lobby teams. But off of this, I felt like Alliance did a great job. I think in that final zone, just taking those 2 fights, one against after the 07 chaos and then one against ANC Outplayed, they went, I think, 13 plus points. So they're looking good. Definitely changed the trajectory of their series so far. And we've got somebody who's been in a situation where they're playing it slow but still coming out on top, or they're taking final fights that are for playoff championships. He's the man himself. It's Kashera who's joining us here. Kashera, thank you for taking your time and joining us here on the ALGS Halftime.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invite, of course. It's always an honor to be here. And yeah, that's it.
So, Kashera, I want to give you the opportunity to, while we have a lot of things to discuss today, I want you to talk about your experience coming into this split, because, you know, it's been a different version of the ALGS for you over this last year. You know, you were someone who obviously has been in the highest of high positions. You were one team fight away from hoisting a trophy, the first trophy in EMEA. And obviously this last LAN you were not a part of, and rebounding, trying to figure out the team and the situation for you. You've settled on this squad. They've done very well. You guys had a great match day. And I want to just get your thoughts on your journey so far and how you're feeling about your team and the split.
Definitely last split was a bit rough for me. Things didn't went the way I wanted them to. It hurted a bit to not be at the LAN, to see everyone playing and having fun, and me having to sit at home, but it's part of it, you know. You can't win every time. You're not going to do good every single time. And I think I had kind of a break to actually rethink about my approach, rethink about what I need to do to be back at the top. And I think I'm doing that right now with Go Next. Really good team. My teammates are very, very young, very motivated, a lot of potential. And I think we are taking the right steps to be back stronger than ever.
Well, it's been a very strong start for you guys. I want to get your thoughts on Season 21, because it's been another huge change in Apex Legends, right? And I know that you were a big advocate of the POI draft and, you know, the effects it's going to have on the game. You said you took a little moment to kind of reevaluate what's going to take to get to the top. Do you feel like your stock rose as an IGL, an established IGL who's had success with this POI draft? Because I feel like it's putting even more pressure on the IGLs to be adaptable, flexible in big moments.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm kind of used to being the player that kind of flexed every single LAN, being the player that, even though I qualified for example, last year, every single final from upper bracket, that didn't really have a good POIs in finals. And I feel like with this change, maybe things can turn around. And if I'm able to be at the same situation, maybe this time we don't lose on the last fight and we lift the trophy. Who knows?
Well, I'm sure the smile on your face would be far bigger if that were to happen, and I wish you all the best of success for that. I mean, it would feel like history repeating itself if we ever saw you in a final circle in that moment. But let's talk about those final circles that we've just seen in the first 3 matches, Kashera. The first one being in Skyhook, and it was won from a team in Landslide. Talk me through what you saw. Was there any key takeaways here?
The key takeaway is that GG did an amazing job holding that northwest side of the map, killing Alliance in the early game, and then dominating that entire area that allowed them to walk into the zone basically for free. They had a really hard game. All the three teams that were in the middle of Skyhook, kind of like, as soon as they rotated into the middle, they didn't really have to do much. It was more of like waiting for the zone to pull towards them and just do firing range. But yeah, like it still takes some type of knowledge to be in the right place at the right time. Danish just controlled the entire height. They still had this blue crate that gave them the ultimate height, the ultimate cover. Everyone had to fight, and they just end up winning the game kind of for free.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it happens, the game comes to you, but then in match 2, we saw a very similar zone, but slightly shifted to the other side. What did you see in this one?
Yeah, like this is one of the examples that even though the zones were similar, the end teams were completely different. The efforts that needed to be put in for the teams to be at this last match, like at this last ring, was a lot. And I want to shout out like 07 and the players. I think they did an amazing game. 07 holding the mid part of Skyhook, dominating that entire area. Players with a rotation from Big Mod. I don't know, they just played perfectly with Fuse in this last game. They killed every single team on the left side. They didn't have much cover, but they were able to come out on top with a lot of kills.
And then the final game of the first 3, we saw Alliance take the victory, which is a comfortable one in the end. But after 2 difficult games in 1 and 2, how important do you think it is for Alliance that they were able to find a win here?
I think the change of approach, changing Watson for Fuse, really helped them in this game. Also taking things step by step instead of like just sending like they did in the first 2 games, helped them a lot. Like this is a team that we all know that even if they start a bit rough, they are always able to come back. They came back, I don't know how many splits already. And they have the potential, they have the quality, they know what they're doing. So like it's always a team to be afraid of and respected. Them taking that like west spot in zone 2, holding GG, because I think like GG was doing an amazing job on that edge. Like those 6 kills, like not many teams were able to do those 6 kills that they did, and they ended up getting third-partied by Alliance. But Alliance with a good adaptation, picking Fuse, and yeah, let's see if they come up with how Pathfinder will work for them in Storm Point. Will be interesting.
You know, Kushera, that's what I want to leave you on as we take a look here at these final series standings for our World's Edge games. Obviously, players 07, Gaimin, Gladiators, 9 Lives, all within about 4 points of each other. Let's include Danish with that and make it 5 points. You know, you bring me back to kind of the more traditional conversation I like to have in Apex before we let you go is meta, is characters. And one of the characters that in Season 21 got to change and why we're seeing him more is Fuse, to be able to see those, you know, provide that controller vision for a team and give them a lot more pressure in those end zones. You're someone who's pioneered, not pioneered, but I guess been the face of Watson crypto comps for a while and things that are not traditional but really successful. How do you feel about Fuse kind of going against some of the traditional styles here in the meta, and what do you see for the meta in our, you know, upcoming weeks here for players who are watching at home?
I think like if Fuse doesn't get a nerf soon, I think we're gonna keep seeing this trend of like people picking up Fuse, especially the stronger teams, because I think the Fuse is the new lifeline basically for these teams. Like especially for example, like the regional side of things, not the land side of things, because the best teams have such a high skill gap compared to the mid-tier teams that they're gonna use those characters that will give them advantage to fight and have a stronger team fight, instead of like those control characters that help you rotate or help you hold a spot for longer, because you know you're good, you know you have that firepower, and if you utilize those characters that will enhance that, you can do like Alliance they did now, or players that did in game 2, which is like just dominate everything around you, just put an immense amount of pressure. And yeah, like it's one of 2 things. If you want to counter that, you have to play Watson, and Watson is just gonna force you to play so passive during the entire game that most teams just end up being blue shields, while with you in Fuse, you're gonna be like 2 purples, 1 red, or 2 reds, and you're gonna be the boogeyman of the server in a way.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I love soccer. We talk about soccer football here all the time. You could send the wingbacks forward all the time and keep the pressure up if you know you're just going to control the ball. You know, add 2 more offensive players into the mix versus sitting back and playing passive. I love it. Thank you so much, Kashir, for all your insight and joining us. It was great to hear you talk about the games, and we're going to send you back, but thank you again for joining us on this halftime.
Yeah, thank you for the invite, guys. Have a good stream, and yeah, let's go.
All right. Kashira from Go Next. Good luck. He's not playing today, but he's watching. And thank you so much for the insight. Mark, it was great to hear him talk about that. I love the meta conversations as well. And we'll continue on. Dan, you've done great. First 3 games are all yours. We're going to give you a break now. So rest up. We'll see you back here for games 5 and 6. Mark, let's go back into it, though, as we transition into game 4 here on Storm Point. How'd you feel about his general comments? Any takeaways there from Kashira's insights?
I think it's always fascinating to look at, like you say, legend composition, how legends changes, how metas change. And it can be even the smallest things now that you don't almost go sort of unseen until you read like a little bit deeper into the patch notes. Like early on, everyone's picking Caustic. It's like, why is everyone picking Caustic all of a sudden? Why is Caustic such a go-to? And it's because of the early power spike that he had with the perk system, right? The fact that you had the enlarged ultimate available when you were only hitting blues, well, that's been changed, and now you have to get to purple before that, and you're like, do we have that power spike we need for an early fight? It's going to be a more effective legend in the end game in comparison to someone like, you know, a Fuse, which is going to help you get up Evo, is going to help you storm buildings, it's going to force people out from cover. And I think it's fascinating to see what Kashira was saying as well. Like, I feel like it's a character that you play if you're a highly skilled fighting team, because you are giving up a more defensive character for it. But it's the classic saying, right? Defense. I mean, attack is the best form of defense. If you can kill a team before they can even do anything, who cares?
I've always loved that, and that's why I went immediately to the football, the soccer analogy, because to me, that's how the teams that I was on like to play. That was always my mentality. If we're attacking them, they're not attacking us. So let's just keep the pressure on, and then we'll have the ball, we'll have the rhythm, and it's what feels like a Fuse allows the teams to do. And he made an interesting point too. He said the high tier teams there's such a skill gap between the mid-tier teams as we look at these teams. Well, maybe the POI draft is helping to bridge that gap here, because certainly, you know, Mark, we're not really seeing too much of a difference in terms of points. I mean, the top 10 teams are, you know, one decent game away from swapping their positions.
Yeah, it's very, very true. It's very, very close this week, and maybe that's just saying this is an equally skilled lobby. Nobody's really getting an advantage over anyone else when it comes to those team fights. And just looking at some of the POIs, one I do want to call out here, you're probably thinking, hey, why are Alliance picking up Trident? That seems like a really, really weird pick. Well, I'm pretty sure there's no one at Northpad, so they're going to be able to grab the Trident, move over there. They're going to essentially get it for free themselves and cover a little bit more ground. So that's why you're seeing that as a pick. Jurassic in the center of map is always good for full English. They like to be a team who can get to zone as quickly as possible. But I think you looking at Storm Point and looking at the stats, the mill is the one that people are going for at the moment. That's where the most success has come from. That's where the most total points have come from so far. So keep an eye on the mill as a POI that's always going to be picked very, very early on here, and Passion of the team who are going to have it.
Such an interesting element for these teams trying to go back and forth in these different maps, and now having to do the POI draft, which we've already determined happens a couple of days before we go into our Pro League. The captains are given a snake draft. So if they get first, that means they also have the 40th pick. And that will mean that they've got to find out how they're going to prioritize where they go and on which map, and of course where they will have the last pick. And it'll go pretty similarly if you're 20th and 21st as well. A lot of these teams, though, you know, to me, it's not been too different in terms of the zones that we've played. We've seen 2 Skyhook zones in World's Edge, and that was very similar to last week as well. And it almost got people saying, Pat, you know, quotation marks random, right? And that's a fair assessment, because there are some very similar zones that we tend to see. If it's a south zone as well, you know, we've seen teams already start to kind of hedge their bets on north spots, which are already pretty prioritized. Places like Echo HQ, I mean, I know Mill gets a lot of these great spots, but I love these south zones in Stormpoint, and I feel like there is a lot of history backing up that these are pretty good choices as well, not just for loot, but in terms of where these games, you know, tend to end, or at least have over the first part of this round robin.
Yeah, I mean, again, you look at Alliance's pick, and I think it was influenced by what they'd seen so far, maybe in scrims and some of the game days that they've played, right? They were thinking zones seem to be going more north. We haven't had a lot of southern zones, and it's a risk, of course, because what happens if all of a sudden you get those southern zones, you're kind of giving up what you might have had in the POI draft as a POI that gives you better access to those zones, and you're more comfortable traditionally playing from the southern side. So all of these factors start to play into it. And the more I've been thinking, and I was thinking while I had the break a little bit earlier, I was like, there's so much going on at the moment. And it's like, what's going on here? Like, how do we play from here? Like, what's our rotate the zone? I think it puts even more focus on like the fundamentals of Apex Legends, which is just winning fights. It sounds like you can get too like caught up in the weeds sometimes, and what POI we're playing from, you know, what Evo we're going to have available, how we're going to rotate, what teams are next to us. It's like, none of that really is as influential as it could be if you're winning your fights. So you're looking at North America is a great example of it at the moment. And I'm going to talk about Falcons. I have to talk about Falcons, right?
You got to, really, yeah.
They are the team who at the moment are proving that, because from POIs, wherever they're playing from, they will win an early fight that allows them to then have an advantage in fights going forward. And I think you've got to sometimes look at those fundamentals, and the teams that are at the top are still the ones who are going to win the majority of those fights.
And I think the other element of it too is the predictability. And by the way, we are getting a lobby restart, everybody. So that's why we're going to spend a little bit more time on this, wait for our players to get back into it. But it's coming up very shortly. Do not worry. Maybe it's a good time to, get some water, but we're going to be hanging. The lobby is getting back up soon. So thank you for your patience. It goes back to even the Falcons conversation, but the POI draft conversation, how that comes into play. And I always go to teams like, E8. If we go to North America, 07, we've talked about them a lot today, but it is also the team that is this same point in EMEA where the early contests have such an unpredictability to it, because there really was this element of, if we won the contest first or we lost it twice, are we going back that third time? And some teams would actually not go back and choose a different location if they got beaten enough on that contest. Now you don't have that. And even though there might be contests or similar teams in front of you or behind you, even the consistency of knowing exactly the fight you're going to have to take. And also, let's not forget this, Mark, what team you're going to be fighting. A lot of these people are drafting knowing that, hey, we're making that north rotation. We know that it's this team ahead of us. We know that it's FA Kids who are going to be right behind us, and we can win that fight. We know FA Kids. So we're going to take that aggressively, and versus, maybe there's this random anomaly there. I think that also gives players like Falcons, who have a ton of extremely experienced and talented players, and anyone in EMEA as well, the confidence to take those team fights without any random things showing up and ruining what is a good game plan.
Yeah, I think I was mentioning earlier, a lot of pressure is going to be on coaches and to formulate macro around some of these POIs. But I think the most simple things that you're looking at is what teams are around us? What teams do we feel like we're going to be stronger than in a team fight historically? Maybe we plan to rotate that way. But then again, you've got other things that come into it. Like you're planning to rotate towards zone, but then you've got to think about your path into Evo, right? And that's right. All of these things start to come into the equation. That's why I think it's the most fascinating that Apex Legends has been in quite some time, because every single game is this standalone thing where there is no repetition. Even though we saw, I think a great example is map 1 and 2 that we had today, right? You're looking at the zones, you're going, hey, these are almost exactly the same zones, but we don't have the same teams in the end game because of various reasons that might have happened. Teams adapt, teams play for different spots, teams have different paths to go and get evos, and you don't get that repetition that sometimes we would have seen in some previous games. So one thing to note here as well is we do see Alliance with that Trident pick. It's not as crazy as you think. They do have Northpad available to them as well. You mentioned the south side of Stormpoint, and I want to kind of talk about this a little bit when we get to it, because historically I would say we see two teams that are landing down on the south side around Echo Station and around that area, but because of the fact that now some of the POIs are, I would say, considerably weak, and I'm talking about ones like Prowler's Nest, Cliffside, you're not going to be wanting to pick them. It's one that would be split, I would say, and maybe you get two POIs previously. Now there's a team there between the two teams which traditionally would have been there, so it becomes a 3-team kind of area on the map where you have Devastated Coast, you have Echo Station, all these teams starting to stack up. FA Kids, look, perfect example here, right? Echo HQ maybe gets picked up by someone else. Coastal Camp gets left on its own, and now you're going to have to plan your rotate where you're thinking, hey, depending on what time we leave our POI, how fast is this other team going to be looting? Are they still going to be there? Are they going to wait for us? Are they going to try and rat it if we have a survey beacon or a ring console? So you have to keep all these things in mind, and every single step that you take will be a little bit more treacherous than it was previously.
And it's such a great example of looking at that over our last games too. A lot of teams, even though they know where they're going, they ran into some teams a little too early, got caught out, and that's still going to happen in Apex. It's not a perfect game, and these aren't perfect players. There will be mistakes that are made, but Nasky, and because we had him on halftime last week, gave us a really good awareness of what an IGL is going to need to do. And no matter what position you're in, you have to be aware of all of the paths from the other positions near you and the timings on where they are, especially in terms of rotations. You see how fast that Trident gets picked up from Alliance in effect? You've got to be aware of that. So you probably have to have done that. And that is going to require more from our IGLs, as you have so eloquently mentioned and pointed out, Mark. And we'll see how it goes again today. It looks like it won't be at least the most southern of zones, as we start off right in the middle, as most teams going to have a pretty even chance there on rotating early into that zone.
And I'm not crazy. Alliance are essentially split dropping. You can see that they're doing North Pad and Trident. I would have said they would be, if someone was at North Pad, I can almost guarantee that Alliance would not have been picking it. They would have been picking North Pad and leaving Trident free. But you're saying center, I'm saying center slightly north, because I cheated waiting for the zone to pop up. It's going to be Cascade Falls. I'm going to be honest, I didn't see that as a Cascade zone the first time I saw it. So there you go.
And it's ANC Outplayed too, so this is going to be great for them. They're one of our leaders here in EMEA, and they continue to play zone very, very well. Question on the wins is still the question that we're asking, is they've done a game, they've done a match day win without winning a single game. So that is something we'll see if they can pull together. But you know, Andy Jax, Willem, and Shex, who was getting Shexy. I love that, Mark. Will there be in a good spot today to continue that action?
It's a good name, but it's also a career ender if you get it wrong. it's always a risk. So yeah, maybe I'll put that one in the back pocket for another time.
Yeah.
You don't want to be saying it when you're a little bit sleepy. Put it that way, you're a little bit tired later in the day, because it can be a fraudulent slip of the tongue. But ANC Outplayed, this is another interesting conversation to have, right? They have zone. Not sure if they have a ring. They do actually have a ring console themselves as well, but you got to remember now that it's not just a case of setting up in zone and saying, hey, great, we've got a certain amount of armors, we can level up with a 30-30, whatever it might be from zone. You still have to kind of overextend a little bit to hit some Evo harvesters to make sure that you've at least got blues. Because if a team finds out and armor checks you early that has an advantage, and they know that you have God Spot, they know that you're the team that lands there, and they get the armor check that tells them that you're on whites and one blue, they're going to fight you straight away for it. It's such a difficult fight to have early. And not only are you giving up God Spot, not only are you giving up potentially a top 5 guarantee, that you're falling out in 20th, which means 0 points. So it's such a difficult balance to kind of hit.
And that's, to me, the thing that we have seen plague EMEA as a region. And EMEA has been such a spotlight of greatness for so long. So many teams have been the marquee teams that we look at when we go to a split playoffs and we see our winners finals and we see the actual match point finals. Who's in there? There's always a few stars from EMEA, 3-4 teams that really shine. And, you know, Alliance certainly is one of them. But when you look at the things that have plagued them, it's certainly been the inability to be consistent in those lobbies. And I think that's where EMEA as a region, in a weird way, excels, because I think they played pretty consistently across the board. We're almost, you know, you go 4 or 5 games deep, you're not quite sure who's going to win until game 6, halfway through. And so it's a weird thing, Mark, to look at. But I also think, you know, every team has their, and every region as well, has things that in certain metas amplify. And I think definitely in last meta with the same legends, the same thing, it hurt EMEA. But I think maybe in this, where there's a little bit more, you know, there's some risk being taken, especially even looking at the Fuse or the Watsons filling in with the Bloodhound and Bangalore, you know, could pan out well for some of our teams to finally get that edge.
Well, it's no better opportunity than when a fresh meta develops, right, to get ahead of the curve and put the time in. And this is probably the biggest change that we've seen since Evo Shields, I would say, in Apex Legends. But elsewhere, you can see a couple of fights, not really strong fights, I would say. People kind of peeking at each other, having a little prod. Command Center is going to be the point of contention for these teams. 3D Max up on this height. Unfortunately for them, you can see they do not have barely any Evo. They've still got 186 Evo to even level up to blue at the moment. So that's why you're seeing them maybe try and think about hitting a survey beacon just outside at the moment through the spider tunnel. But a lot of work for them to do. before they can even think about fighting. Because like I mentioned, if the team finds out you're on white, I don't care if you're prime TSM. I had to get one TSM in because I thought that would be fun. You're still going to get run out.
Full English, the team I love talking about. They just have, you know, so many members of this region that we've kept an eye on, from Sir Del or to Phoenix, who with Forge Gang splitting, trying to find a new home and a new narrative
for this spot.
And this one, though, players coming off a win as well. First place in the lobby, they drop down, and Kazakh in the fire from Fighto's Motherload. Kazakh going down, though. It's Passion right on the other end of that. 0-0, almost taken down, but that's it. A sliver of health. He's going to get that shield battery off, and this should be Passion cleaning it up, no problem.
Yeah, not sure about that play. I have to say, I hate to be critical, but it's my job to be sometimes. That just looked like a full send onto not a lot of damage. So I had to go back and watch that one, get back in the lab and VOD review that one to see exactly what the play call was. But for now, at least Zhanya's managed to get out and managed to stay alive. Doesn't have the banners, though, which is a slight problem, of course, but we'll live to fight another day. It was an interesting one because they had that spot which traditionally NRG play, a form of X-Set, of course, where they play that little rock formation. They play the height a little bit below it. Maybe someone thought they got more damage than they did. Maybe they were going to try and play off the fuse ult, but ultimately look back on it and think, whatever we did, it wasn't the right decision.
And sometimes do we just underestimate visual clutter and like how that impacts on a team? Because if you don't hit that fuse ult correctly and you're not getting the highlights inside, it's just very hard to see past it. And if you go down and you're even level, you don't have any height, it can be like, where are they? I don't know. I'm shooting. That's the split second it takes, because they know where you drop down from. And you could see that was really the difference in terms of winning that fight or not, making it out with just a sliver of health. Rotating through, we see ANC Outplayed already careful and ready to go inside the building. The full English trying to jump in and siege. They're going to throw a smoke as they cross. Phoenix letting Lyfin go in with a little bit of cover. The Nemesis Hemlock, it's going to do a lot of damage, but it's going to at least buy him some time as they jump up the staircase, hit a shield battery.
AARs, the meta is not dead, it lives. Although I'm pretty sure that he'll be desperate to find a Havoc to swap out for that Nemesis, just holding the attachments and everything that he needs to, in the hope that they can swap that a little bit later on. But you are seeing Cascade start to get extremely busy. And no surprise to see that with the zone continuing to pull down towards them. One team that is good to keep an eye on, though, will be Passion, because you can see at the north side of this zone, Alliance are moving in behind them through that choke. And Passion, if they can hold down this spot towards the end game, we will be able to move in from height towards the rest of the teams who are already stacked up. There'll be third-party opportunities for them. They will be able to force their way into a spot a little bit. And 9 Lines, you could say the same about. If they can deal with either Vex leaving command center, or I think it was players who were rotating behind them, but only that solo, then they should be in a really good spot for end game as well.
And 07 here, caught between a fence and DMS. Amphi peeking first on the Catalyst, gets a good amount of damage. Tough rotate from DMS. They're just going to say, oh, we're going to go away. And there's 2 easy spots for both of them, so they just cut their losses. I think a lot of teams need to do a little bit more of this as well. This Trident, hopefully not a chase. No, it's just a rotate out to the west side, and so they will take different routes towards this zone. A team I kind of wanted to highlight, though, was Passion and Alliance, who are really at the, you know, they're going to be the victims of essentially a dice roll here. If that zone pulls a little bit north, I think they'll both be able to coexist. But if it pulls south towards where most of these teams are holding in the middle of Cascades, Alliance are in trouble. Passion are gatekeeping them. 9 Lives are gatekeeping the other side. They will have to hit a big evac, and that evac will probably have a lot of pressure on it. And if not, there's not a lot of places to land. So the next 18 seconds and maybe a minute or so of the close going to determine a lot for Alliance.
Have to see what composition that Alliance are playing as well, because they've been toying with a few different things. They've been toying with some new legends, I will say, in the composition. They've also been toying with Pathfinder a little bit.
You said Pathfinder, so, right?
I was going to say that could certainly play into the decisions that are made a little bit later on. But one team who is, shall we say, trying not to show too much presence, just had it ruined by a Bloodhouse scan, so it doesn't matter.
Just a little bit of creep here as they stalk their prey coming outside. A nice light
very
cluster. Yeah. Well, you got to do the Attenborough voice if you really do it. And at this point, they've already made too much noise. David would have walked off this project the second he heard it. Needs more gentle music, please. And Blacklist International, only 2 points. Nothing gentle about what they need. They need to get aggressive and find something here. It hasn't worked out for Jaco-sama, though, as he takes a lot of damage. And Arcstar there as well. Smoke just trying to buy some time, but there's a team on the other side as well. It's K-Swinny and Exo get involved, and Blacklist look like they are getting just out of here.
Spray comes in from K-Swinny with that flatline. Name a better combo than K-Swinny and a flatline. He does so much damage with it, and now they're looking to move up and maybe think about cleaning up the pieces outside as well. The only problem is they don't quite have an angle, I thought, onto that Watson pylon, but they do manage to get the defense pole down, and they do manage to push through. Now they're looking to clean up these final kills. 20 squads still remaining, though. A couple of rats in the lobby. The question is, will they be exterminated before that endgame?
Very interesting. 9 Lives holding this gatekeep as well. They've gotten distracted. That kind of opens up that storyline I was talking about, which we haven't seen with Alliance. We still don't know where the zone is, so keep an eye on that. Exo Clan getting very, very involved, and that's a good sign for them. Obviously, with no Bryn today and having to kind of find their rhythm again with a new squad after their second week, it's looking good. Maybe that's freed them up a bit to just say, we're going to play something different. We're going to go to Newcastle. We'll see if that can hold as Jans, Slayers, and K-Swinny basically win on that one. And it's basically due to the stabilization that you've got from Newcastle. And while maybe not in the end zone, we've seen it be as successful. Certainly in these moments, Mark, where you're kind of on the edge, you don't really have natural cover, that Newcastle wall is going to be good.
Yeah, certainly can provide you with some cover. Alliance I want to talk about as well, as we do see the zone pull away from Cascade Falls and towards Stay Healthy, Danish and rolling teams. Everybody who's in Cascade Falls is going to be really happy right now, just so you know. But Alliance is interesting because they've been waiting to hit that survey beacon all of that time. They weren't willing to take the fight with passion. They knew they were being held out. They were waiting to see where everyone was stacked up and where everybody was going to be playing. Now, they don't have zone information here, Alliance, and they're going to have to force this fight now to get towards zone. But the interesting thing for me is where they're going to try and force themselves. Is it towards Cascades? Is it going to be towards where the zone is going? Because that player scan would have given them the info that everybody is in Cascade, so maybe they're going to be a little bit flummoxed and bamboozled.
They got a lot of damage on Henchman. Did you see that early on? And that just forced it away. I thought Passion, they've been holding there for a good 4 minutes, keeping Alliance exactly where they were. And just like that, they withdraw, but they're not out. It's just a little bit of a hold. And they've got the Caustic too, 0-0. He doesn't have the ultimate anymore, and so that is going to be, well, he actually might have the ultimate, but they've used the Bangalore Rolling Thunder, Mark. So they've used some resources, but not all. And Alliance, they're not out of dodge, but they've got purples, and that's a big advantage heading into this fight.
Yeah, big HP advantage here as we see an evac coming in here from Exo Clan. They were over at command. They want to try and take this fight. They want to fight for Godspot right now, and this is the kind of fight that wins you games. If you can win it, and most importantly, if you can win it quickly without taking too much damage, then you put yourself in a really good spot. And here is another example of why Newcastle can be such an effective legend. You don't have to force this fight now because they have the additional cover of the castle wall. So K-Swinny providing them with a little bit extra than what any other team would have with their composition.
And remember, Season 21 changes, adding that vertical, essentially, wall that allows a lot of ordinances, unless they go from up all the way down, to not hit Newcastle. But talking about up all the way down, it's the health bar of Zidane as he takes on Effect. 2 of the top gunners in EMEA. Effect says, watch this. The Havoc sprays and Alliance hockeys on the Pathfinder. He doesn't need a grapple right now to get out of this. That's one more. Kiner goes down. It's just another kill, and Alliance will have taken down FA Kids with the Pathfinder, no less.
Problem is, though, because Effect went down and didn't back out of that fight quick enough, now they've got to res. The zone is closing, and you know that Passion were waiting, right? However, there does look like there was a gold knockdown, so they've managed to get back up and a little bit of health, a little bit of HP, which makes this fight a little bit more winnable for them. But Passion, they're not holding right now. Alliance are moving through that choke as we look at 9 Lives, who are in a really good spot here, but have got some severe distance to travel, and they're just about to find that out themselves. The good spot has become less good.
Yeah, and there's a lot of teams playing on the other side of this area as well. 9 Lives Esports are, you know, in a spot where they've got a lot to do in terms of moving forward, but there's no pressure behind them, and that's not what every team can say, you know. And so at this point in time, maybe rolling teams, maybe the only team that can say that, or Alliance outside of 9 Lives. So playing in front of you, that's one thing. They've got the zip line there as well. Hockey takes so much damage though. I don't know if that was a 3-2-1 or something, just a couple of headshots, but that hurt. And that is going to put Alliance in a tough spot, force the shield bat. Unlucky knows he's got to maybe show some more presence than before, and he does enough, and it hits the Bloodhound ult so that at least no one starts to push off of that.
Well, they are playing the Pathfinder, so you can see that if they do want to rotate quickly, they of course have that perk available where they're going to take a little bit less damage on that rotate. They can also, of course, just take that height, which was what Haki was just trying to do. It's just unfortunate timing for him that he had those shields broken, because I think he would have had the jump onto Passion UA, and that story will continue and not have an end. As we look at Forbidden now, who are trying to force their way in towards zone. A long way for them to go at the moment. They're one of the teams who are remaining from the early call of going over to Cascade Falls. That most of the lobby also made the same call. But only, I would say, one of these teams can leave as a full 3, if that, because everybody's going to have to fight through each other.
Two teams in a great spot, at least they were before we saw where the zone is going to pull. It was Danish and Rolling teams. They've been involved in early skirmishes, gone out early, but Danish has also been a team that has won a game, and they have been a threat. So let's see if they can back that up again. 16 squads left, but a lot of teams don't have space here. ExoClan still in that great spot we talked about, but Forbidden throws the ultimate. Calamitous gets the Rolling Thunder rolling. Aimbot, Yakui, Apex on the top as well. It's going to be a bit of a bloodbath here. All these teams fighting for very little space. You can see even behind him as well. Gaimin Gladiators blast. The last one alive. He's going to go down here, and that's DMS taking him down as well. Taskmaster, he's pulled off a 1v3 before, but he's going to have to pull off a miracle here to stay alive.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. Everybody who's leaving here, by the way, has blue shields as well, which means that even if they escape from Cascade Falls, the teams who have managed to get their way into zones will be able to chop them down easily. DMS gone, ANC Outplay gone, Vex gone as well. Forbidden also eliminated. 3D Max go down. And the most important one from all of that was Vex falling, because they were in the one building that was still inside of this zone. Who is there now? And I say building is the cannon. Excuse me. It's Alliance who are on your screen. So Alliance now up to 2 reds and a purple. The Pathfinder is going to allow them to move. Capitalize on the Rolling Thunder damage. This is why you play Path. My boy is back.
What a setup. And I thought that was going to be a lot harder than it was. Alliance, though, hit so much with the Rolling Thunder as well. And it's just that easy. They're in God spot. They've got mobility up on a high ground as well. They can play both and get back down to the safety if they need to. 07, meanwhile, though, looking like a very strong team in a strong position. They've got a building and they will have to move. But right now, they're in control. And with 31 points, they're leading our lobby.
Also a Kraber in the kill feed as well. Masuku's got that in his hands, and unfortunately for Max Strafey and Passion UA, they're finding that out first-handedly. Elsewhere on the southern side, everybody is fighting. And 07, who we mentioned, had a tough rotate. Well, this zone pull has certainly helped them out. They've managed to get into the top 10 already just by avoiding some of the carnage that was happening in and around Cascade Falls. And now they're looking to force their way even further in towards this game. 7 squads remaining, and we're seeing more finishes coming in with that Kraber. That is having such an impact on this endgame. Wow,
that is huge. You have to watch out Masuko going in. And that would be Passion UA, I believe, who is feeling a little bit of that pressure. We'll see if it continues on. Passion will have just gone down. Passion UA will have just fallen. Young Hong Kong and Fricks, the Danish duo, will take that one. And it does seem like Danish is still in the mix, so watch out for them. But they're in the same building as 07. So 2 of our teams that have top 1, top 3 are going to probably here have to fight it out to see who can stay alive in our top 6, as we've got rolling teams. ExoClan, Stay Healthy, Danish, 07, and Alliance alive here for this final end zone mark.
This is such a big push, a huge push, but unfortunately here, it looks like Alliance will come out on top for rolling teams, because they managed to pop a bat at just the last second as they finished that first fight. However, having held off once is great, but Danish now are going to move in and should be able to clean this up pretty comfortably. Just hit your shots. It's as simple as that. But is anyone going to be here to third party? Of course there is. They know this is God spot. Danish will fall as well. Alliance go down. They get into the top 4, but it's not enough. And now we're down to 3.
ExoClan in a great spot still. They had that God spot. Look at that new castle and the ability to just show up, hold strong on height, and then rotate that quickly. On the other side of things, we got Stay Healthy, and it's another 07 solo player. I don't know who it is, but that's our 3 teams alive. It's Nasky again. Somehow he's done it, and he's going to go down here. Another 3rd place for Nasty Nasky, and he's finished us off. Now we've got a 2v2, a 3v3 for the game here.
Does Mizuku have any Kraber bullets left? That's my question. They split the zone in half with the catwalk. ExoClan have the armor advantage by far, but that can all change with one headshot. A lot of pressure here on the Catalyst player to find an angle to hit a shot. But you can see that they don't really have great angles to play with. It's about playing the head glitch, which makes this shot even more difficult. But one thing that's going to give you an opportunity, maybe it's the castle wall. Knowing there's going to be a new castle behind it, you can pop ahead. 95's good, but is it good enough to win this fight?
Not even close. Mizuku takes so much damage in return, and it looks like Stay Healthy are going to do just the opposite of that. Is ExoClan are your champion to start off Storm Point.
We're seeing some of our big names return to the #1 spot in the last couple of games. First it was Alliance, now it's ExoClan. And even though it's a new looking lineup, it's looking like it's providing results already. It was a really interesting 3v3 in that end game as well. And there's a lot to talk about from that game full stop, but one bullet. You need to hit the headshot. 95 ain't good enough when you're down that armor.
And it's too close because the retaliation is immediate, and it's from 2 or 3 players at that range. The head glitch was great, but you're right. You kind of put it all into, I either hit this shot and we win, otherwise, if I hit it looked like a leg shot right there, we do not get enough value from it. And I think that's just something that, Mizuku had to live with, because you've gotten 2, 3, 4 kills. Maybe the reason you're in that position is because of what you've done with the Kraber up until that point. It certainly affected the lobby. It certainly put Stay Healthy into a great position. But I think the fact too is that Stay Healthy, Mark, had to deal with Nasky as well. They had to kind of drop down, deal with Nasky, that solo player. He affected them more than he affected Exo. And there was also no play off of the Catalyst wall, because it was just an immediate Newcastle wall from Exo right there. And so they weren't really able to get much of it. And essentially playing the head glitch, they also kind of gave up the high ground.
Yeah, it's an interesting end game, wasn't it? I think they wanted to leave that high ground a little bit earlier than they could to play that head glitch, because if they weren't, if they left it later, then they would have been easy pickings, as they would have had to drop. But I think one thing to note there was actually the armor difference between the two teams in that final moment. It's somewhat surprising when you have a player who has a Kraber in their hands, right? Because you're expecting them to hit a few shots. We saw a few being picked up, but it wasn't able to transfer into a couple of purples, dropping it off to a teammate maybe to use to get a little bit of Evo armor up. Who knows? But ExoClan, they're going to be the ones who succeed, and they're the ones who benefit from that leg shot, not the headshot. Kills for them as well along the way. That is a big, big game from ExoClan.
Huge game as well. They match players, I think, with the highest score total of game this day. And that's, if you are end up tying, that's our tiebreaker. So that'll be interesting as well. We'll have to go to a second tiebreaker if those two teams are in that position. Stay Healthy with 14 overall points. Big note here, 07, they did adjust with placement points. Alliance added 10 kills to the 5 points they earned from 4th place. Danish and Rolling Teams also getting 6 and 7. And 3D Max, big shout out as well, 10th place, but 6 kills, giving them 8 overall points. They need the big win. They are sitting last in EMEA in the overall standings. But Mark, bottom 10 as well. We saw a lot from Blacklist International. These types of teams, you don't see the full story all the time, very heavily in the mix, but not getting great results here in this game.
Yeah, 2 teams, like you mentioned, the ones who picked up KP that didn't get the greatest of placement points, like DMS, for example, they were 2 of the teams who were trapped in Cascade and kind of the benefactors of leaving and picking up some of those KP on their way out. Placement points was always going to be difficult with that somewhat unpredictable zone shift that we saw, but coming out with at least some KP in a game like that, where it's like, oh, we're backs against the wall now, we just got to find points where we can, you're not going to be too disappointed, even though, 14th overall is not what you want.
Now, I asked a question to Dan, because when we were commentating, the question was in Skyhook, why didn't Newcastle work? Well, at this point, Mark, the question is, why did Newcastle work? K-Swinney have found a way to do their thing, and they're playing it in a really interesting way, and it's put them at the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, I think the reason I think Newcastle works, maybe not just as a legend on this lineup, I think it forces K-Swinney to anchor a little bit more, right? It forces him to play a little bit more of a reserved role. And we know he loves to be aggressive. He loves to lead from the front. Historically, he's always been a player who likes to be in the fight. But I think if you can maybe control the adrenaline a little bit in K-Swinney by putting him on a legend, which kind of forces him to be the pivot point for his team, I think you're going to see some more benefits than you are detriments as we take a look at those overalls. I mean, ExoClan jump up to 1st place now with that performance. So maybe it's not the legend. Maybe it's the speed and the pace of the legend that's forcing, the team to have a little bit more synergy.
And I also think sometimes when you have a situation, unfortunate as it is, to have to say goodbye to Bryn after a couple of days and a new squad, and, you know, for personal reasons at that, you do open yourself up to, well, you know, we got what we got, right? So we have a little more freedom now because we had a game plan. Now we've got to do it differently, so we're not attached to it. Maybe that's opening up something that works for them all along. Well, we'll find out. EXO, 07, Alliance, our top 3 so far after 4. We've got 5 and 6 coming up, so don't go anywhere. Is the official controller partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Welcome back once again, everybody, to the Apex Legends Global Series. We've got 2 more games to go today in our match day number 3, and it feels like the Giants are starting to wake up a little bit here. EXO Clan with a big performance in that last game shoots them straight up those leaderboards, Dan. Puts them at the top of the pile.
Yeah, 21st was their pick when it comes to POI draft from that position, and I think they'll be delighted to put a victory on the board, because I think if you are picking in the mid-table, you're not expecting necessarily to have priority positions to certain zones, but with the way they were able to force their way in and take that final fight, they are going to be more than happy, and we would expect it from a team like EXO Clan. I mean, how many times have we seen Slayers, Case, Swinny, and Jans kind of perform in this way in a final circle? A very confident fighting team.
Yeah, impressed with Jan so far. I think he's been a good pickup for them, right? He seems to be doing what you would want from him as a frontline Slayer. He's pushing in, he's doing a lot of damage on the Bangalore. He's allowing Slayers to do what he does best, which is obviously play off the back of those smokes, get those scans, and be the entry fragger for his team. So I think you're looking at synergy there. I like it. And I mentioned how Case winning on the Newcastle might be the best thing for the team, just slowing the pace down and allowing him maybe a little bit more time to make some decisions. I think it just looks like you talk about chemistry, you talk about things working. It looks like EXO Clan after that last game maybe are just starting to click.
And I think in the earlier games, they were reluctant to take certain fights, but perhaps that came to bite them in the backside. And since then, they've been playing a little bit more aggressive at times and have been more confident in taking some of those straight 3v3s and rewarded for it in that game. And now they come away with a victory. They start to climb those leaderboards and they can go into match 5 and 6 here saying, hey, there is big points up for grabs. We are very much in the mix.
Interesting to see that zone pull as well. I think he caught a lot of teams off guard, and I would say the majority of teams off guard. A couple of big fights being won by Alliance in that end game as well. Unfortunately for them, they had that one god spot, that one bit of cover, and I think a lot of teams, when they saw the fights going down, just kept thirding, thinking if we win this, if we third this is our place to play, and then there would be another team, and it just ended up with a lot of death boxes, and EXO Clan being the final team that was standing at the end of the game. But as we head back into Storm Point for our penultimate game here, the question is, as always, where are we going to go now?
Where are we going to be going? Are the people who selected their POIs first going to be rewarded with a zone here and show the strength of said POIs? For example, Passion UA choosing Sito Station as the #1 pick throughout this draft. And you can see, is it going to be a case where they can pick up any points from it? When the circle comes into the equation, that is going to be a big test. As for 07, who are on your screens at the moment, they actually had one of the last picks, and we'll have to see whether they can make something out of Cenote Cave.
Interesting zone. I wonder if it's going to be going towards Stormcatcher. That would be my early prediction, having not seen the ring consoles being hit as yet. But I might change that in a few moments' time if once I get the zone information, because I've decided, Dan, that I am now happy to cheat when it comes to zone predictions, because we are seeing some pretty unpredictable ones here on Stormpoint.
Yeah, it's certainly been tough to call. I mean, even on World's Edge, to be honest, it's been tough to call for a lot of these teams, but that's part of what makes Apex Legends
I was
fun.
so wrong. I was so wrong. I'm so disappointed in myself. I've never been that wrong. That's
we spoke
terrible.
about Passion UA and Ceto Station. This is going to be their best chance, if ever, to get priority to zone and really find some points that benefit from that early selection in the POI draft.
I don't think I'll ever emotionally recover from that call. That really hurts. You know, I pride myself on zone calls.
Look, we've all been there. There was an entire content piece.
My team.
There was an entire content piece made where I made terrible zone. Actually, no, Vicky made terrible zone calls, and I just agreed with her. But still,
don't start this, because I am taking Vicky's side on this. We do not have this conversation, because I know that you had the opportunity to make some calls and you bailed.
And look, I went with my IGL, and sometimes
you bailed.
Sometimes you have to go with your IGL, even if you don't know and you don't believe what they say. You know.
The kind of guy who'd be telling me after this zone call that told you it was going in.
Told you it was coming all the way over to the west. We should have gone this way.
They're doing some good damage early on here, and they do get an early knock onto Funk from Kneecap. So now the cannon is going to be hit. The question is, how's your clay pigeon shooting? It looks pretty good, but not enough to finish the knock. So there might be a chance for a reset, but Full English are sending it, as I love to when I have a Full English. Put everything on my plate, and let me finish downs as well.
The Full English with the full send, and you do a very successful job at finishing my play, it has to be said, but it looks like Kneecaps are going to be able to escape, or Kneecap, excuse me. I guess two of them, they are the Kneecaps, but they will have to see whether they can get back up to a full 3.
What's the... it would be What's 3 Kneecaps?
Probably just 3 Kneecaps, to be honest.
Yeah, probably that. Yeah, we'll stick with that, because otherwise this is a conversation that's going to go on far too long, where there's much more enjoyable stuff happening. Elsewhere, though, let's look at the zone. A lot of teams are going to the north, or should I say the southern side of Cascade Falls. It could be one of the waterfall zones that we see here in and around the rock formations. It's certainly not on a strong POI. So this is, I think, a call that you make early on if you're an edge team and you're landing on the edge of on Stormpoint here. It's a kill heavy game. I think you can play for a lot of kills from edge here, because there's going to be a lot of teams who, if they are in zone early, there's not a lot of places to play, and you're going to be able to third a lot of fights.
So this is the decision for Passion UA. As I mentioned, dropping it Ceto Station from their POI draft, that was their #1 pick when they had the opportunity to do so. And they've moved very quickly to these buildings, so we'll have to see whether they're rewarded for it. As still, you're seeing the endings of the Full English, that plate being cleaned up a little bit as they just keep finding one player after another.
The juice from the baked beans we are, Dan.
They really are at this point. They're just trying to get any sort of scraps to finish this one off, but Kneecap not making it easy for them. There's a few teams who probably could have made a quicker rotation had they had ring console, but I think a lot of teams are kind of hesitant after seeing the crazy zone pool, saying, well, maybe we have to be a bit more patient and see where this zone's going to be going. One of them being Passion, not Passion UA, but Passion, who are dropping over at the mill. They've lost one player here, and now it's a case of, can they actually get the banner back?
It looks like they're going to at least attempt to, by the looks of things. They're thinking about going back, but maybe it's going to be Fuda who goes out on a solo mission to do so. 0-0 might be thinking about backing him up, but elsewhere, as we take a look to where the zone is going to be going, you can see like the waterfally area just to the south of where we're seeing these buildings being held at the moment. Maybe in and around the cannon spots that we're going to see as well, the end zone. But 9 Lives, they've been in a couple of good spots so far on Stormpoint, but just not being able to, well, I would say, play from 10th to 5th when we see the teams try and drop effectively enough to really be involved in that end game.
It's really a question of, if you're playing Catalyst, can you put her in a position where you actually are in a good spot where the ultimate can make a difference? If it's just a case of trying to survive as you cross open land, where do you go after that? It's a tough game with Catalyst in certain scenarios, and I do like that we are seeing people experiment with different legends to try and find something different. We, of course, saw the Pathfinder in the previous game as well, which we know on Stormpoint can be a big difference maker just with the ability to get that high ground in certain spots.
Well, down at the southern side of Stormpoint, away from the majority of where the teams are going at the moment, we're seeing Gaimin Gladiators try and make their rotate. Probably playing for that Evo Harvester, which is in front of them at the moment, to get those armors up a little bit more. It's team holding them from the cannon at the moment, which will be, I would imagine, slightly frustrating. It's going to be FA Kids who are doing that, and I can guarantee you right now, the conversation from Gaimin Gladiators is, why aren't they rotating?
Which is a frustrating one, isn't it? Because Gaimin Gladiators, you know, dropping all the way down on the southern side of the map, you would expect with one of the worst POIs that they have at Coastal Camp, they should be able to rotate comfortably into zone. And they're just like, why is this team still here? Why are we being held out? And I think for FA Kids, it's a smart decision, because if you notice there's free KP when it's not a zone you have priority to, then play that ratty way, find an ambush possibility, and you might be able to pick up some kills.
Well, Gaimin Gladiators is going to have to try and force this fight, or certainly at least force FA Kids away. Blast is trying to move up, does have the Beast of the Hunt available. If they can get some good smokes down here from Light and close this gap, then he's going to be in a position to pop that ultimate and maybe capitalize on the damage and the scans that come in. But look at the damage he's taken. Now you see the Bangalore roll coming in, and this is just going to force them to heal, and it's going to slow down this rotate even more. And every second that goes past, the more likely it is to be FA Kids who actually win this one. Blast does get the bat off, but now the zone is a problem. Is he going to be able to even heal?
Will not be able to heal, and the GG are going to have to retreat because of that. They wanted to take the fight, but you mentioned it, the damage. Every time that a member of GG poked their heads out, FA Kids had their eyes trained on them, and they were dealing excessive amount of damage, which made it far too difficult to try and push up. And the FA Kids, they are rewarded for their play of just holding out, being patient, and knowing that the Gaimin Gladiators had to come to them.
Yeah, I kind of like the play. I think you're right. You know, you can ask why they weren't rotating, why they're not trying to do this. Well, they played for the KP, and they won the KP fight. And from that, not only did they get the loot, of course, but they get the ammo. Then they can move towards Pylon, continue their rotate in their own time. And they have pretty good priority to this zone as well, because a lot of teams are coming from the north. So not a lot of teams in front of them, as you can see them at the moment. Forbidden are going to be the team that is in Pylon. They'll have to work their way through. But it looks like FA Kids want to play for that survey beacon. They're moving them down right to the south here, probably thinking about hitting that. But no, a change of direction. It looks like an evac instead to Pylon. And they might not know they're Forbidden here.
Yeah, that's the only downside for the time they took by taking that fight, is Forbidden were able to take Pylon away from them, so they were beating to the punch there and maybe punished for it. But elsewhere, Blacklist International, they've taken a good chunk of damage here. They should be able to reset, but it's not comfortable. It's one of these positions where you're in an in-between at the moment. This isn't where you want to play from, and ideally you want to be moving from this spot.
Well, it's the Knuckle Cluster that's going to finish off Ujako here. So now it's a 2v3 situation. They're also getting shot in the side. This is looking very, very ugly for them. Missy trying to just escape to get the shield battery off, but the more seconds that go past, the more likely it is that he will be falling as well, because the ultimate's not going to have an impact. DMS is just collapsing onto him now. You can see that a couple of other players decided to just try and get out of there to keep themselves alive. I think the last remaining member actually just hightailed it up that hill. As you can see, Taskmaster just blasting a few shots into the distance to let him know that we allowed you to run. But that's going to be some good KP here over at Launchpad, and having won this fight, you would imagine that this is going to be a pretty comfortable move in for them as well. Nobody else really in their way. ExoClan the closest to them, but they're closer to Pylon at the moment than they are to Launchpad.
Yeah, and there was a scrap that happened at Pylon, by the way, between FA Kids and Forbidden, and Forbidden came out on top of it. FA Kids down to just one member, and Forbidden, they were able to catch the FA Kids off guard, and all the meanwhile, Gaimin Gladiators were able to get back up to a full 3, and now they're going to be approaching from the south. So even though it was a good attempt from FA Kids to try and pick up some KP, they were punished for it on their rotation.
Well, Forbidden for now. They're going to be safe inside this next zone. They don't have too much info themselves on where zone's going to be going, but who needs info? We can hit shots like that. FA Kids will be eliminated. Zidane, having hit that cannon, will be the final player down. And if you needed to know who this is, well, ExoClan, they're playing the Newcastle, only team who's doing it in the lobby. But Calamitous is doing so much damage here. The question is, can they convert damage to KP, damage to points? Well, there's a third party, and all of a sudden, ExoClan, who looked like they were almost guaranteed to take a knock, well, they're thanking 07 for keeping them alive, as now they can stabilize.
Yeah, how many times does that happen as an individual where you think you are alone and you can push a fight, you can be aggressive because you've done the damage, but then you're in no man's land, and all it takes is someone with a good shot who has eyes on you, and that is going to be someone from 07 that were able to just pick off that player, and then suddenly now Forbidden are on the back foot and they can't even push up on EXO. So that is a disaster for them. It does save EXO, and it was 07 who did so. And speaking of 07, let's jump into a listening. They're usually fun.
I'm popping dogs so I can kill
My bangle is good. My bangle is great. We need to play the catwalk. We need to fight them.
I need to bat. I'm not with you. Not with you.
1 HP. I'm dying in my back.
Cat cracked almost.
I'm batting.
Cat's almost cracked, guys.
Blono was one.
Yeah. I'm
gonna peek it.
I can't see. On the left side of the wall.
Don't swing it, Amphi. Blood on one.
Yeah, get in.
I'm coming.
Kill them.
No, you need to kill them. Finish me.
Nice. Bang low, Zane.
Careful, TP. You got bang out from new team. New team, TP. New team.
Go building.
From northwest.
Gunning. Oh, no.
Good scan.
Just him. Coming up. Go up, Ness. Go up,
Coming up with you.
I have a Moby. Grab his banner. We rest him now.
Grab his banner. Zane, you need to play big now.
Yeah, I know.
Careful, Pylon will come.
I know. I have 80 bullets. I'm looking Pylon.
We'll be fine, okay? We'll be fine.
Just rest him, okay?
Yeah, I'm reinforcing bottom door. Good shit, Zane.
On our old building.
I'm going for res.
Just rest him. Just fucking rest him. I'm shitting on them.
We win this game, yeah?
Yes.
We will.
All three. Just fucking rest him. I'm just pre-firing them. 52. I'm shitting on them badly.
Cannon! We can maybe 3P God spot.
I have no ammo though. I'm
back you. We're getting 3P. The cannon is coming to us. Red, yellow ping.
I'm looking. I need to jump badly.
Red ping.
I'm looking. I have no bullets. I need to
go loot, Zane. I'm holding. Go loot. Bring energy. I have none.
I have ampere.
Just looting.
Here. Can we do something about that cannon team, please? That's a massive threat.
I'm walking up now. I'm walking up.
I'm popping Ultic Cell. I'm gonna have ult in soon. Just wait. Okay,
They're gonna fight in here too.
Give me helmet, Naski. Give me helmet. I need it for my ult, please.
Here, take Ultic Cell.
Wait, I already found one. We
need to kill East.
Yeah.
East is bang ulting and shit.
I'm popping a syringe, Naski.
Careful zone. We're not in, okay? We have to hold them out though.
I'm popping Ultic Cell.
Well, there's certain listenings that you go to, Danny. You can tell what the emotion of the team is. And also, it feels like with 07 that they want to put right the wrongs of the first game day. They are locked in and they are winning fights. They get the res as well. And look at them. All of them dressed in red. They're in the Sunday best.
Yeah, sometimes 07 listening is a calamity and it's a laugh fest. Sometimes it is just pure concentration and some of the best comms you will hear as well. Every single thing that was communicated between the three there was important for their success in this game now when it comes from having the mobile res, from where to position it, from making yourself big so that other teams don't push you. Very successful time from 07. Now they find themselves on this southern side with a good position. They don't have God spot. You could already hear that they were talking about, can we 3P the God spot? But certainly are in a spot where maybe a victory could come from it, but it's still early days and they still have to work their way into the next zone.
Well, one thing to note as well is that Exo Clan will not be going back to back. They were eliminated in that listening as well. 9 Lives, who I mentioned, have played pretty well up until around this point. Well, they're going to have to put that right again. There's nades raining down, knuckle clusters as well, and it is an explosion of bodies as 9 Lives will be eliminated. Passion UA will go out at the same time. And now you're seeing teams start to be forced to fight. Passion at the moment are center zone. They are in God spot. We are going to finish right on that building in the center of Jurassic. And I think that 07 know that as well. You heard it earlier on. They want to 3P the God spot, but they will be safe in the building they're in for now.
But Passion had just a 2, right? Right at the start of the game, remember when we saw Passion, they had lost 1 after moving from the mill. And the overhead looks like that's correct. It looks like it's just 2 of them. I'll get some confirmation in a little bit. But if any team realizes that, Passion are going to be very vulnerable. People are naturally going to start taking the spot or try and take the spot away from them. And it could be someone like 07 who have to make a play and have to make a move at this point. I mean, you look at everyone who's outside of the circle kind of has to make a play, but 07 are one of the closest teams to be able to do so.
Everybody is on the north side of the zone. The zone is now closing. The lobby's going to go from 12 to about 6 in a minute because everybody has left it too late to rotate. Someone is going to have to die. And for 3D Max, they're going to be one of the teams who's probably going to just try and wait this out at the moment because even though they're not in the best spot, they are at least on the right side of that mountain range. You can see on the right-hand side of your screen where everybody else is starting to stack up. Back to Passion, talking about the duo being in God spot. I think the only issue here for people who maybe recognize that and want to push is that there's so much open ground to move across to close that gap at the moment. The likelihood is you're going to take too much damage that the duo will be able to capitalize. And that's why you're seeing such a sort of slow burn as nobody wants to make that move.
I don't even know if anyone will know there are 2 because Passion are doing well at making themselves big at the moment and kind of shooting at anyone who takes a look at them so they're not cowering away in a corner and letting people push up on them. So great play from them right now. 12 squads remain and that is about to get cut down significantly because this circle is going to force all these teams from the north into one another. Alliance going to wrap round on the west. Rolling teams are also taking this fight on the western side and will win the first, but do they know there's another team coming?
Oh, I don't know if they do. Here comes the zips, though. Here comes the Pathfinder. Unfortunately for Hackis, doesn't quite hit the tech that he needed to with that grapple to get over the top. And now Effect is left on his own. He's going to jump in the Trident. Can he get through it? Surely. Magical. He threads the needle. Effect. If you get this battle, by the way, that is the most god-level Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher nonsense I've ever seen.
Get him in a Formula 1 car. Just give him that opportunity. What a play that was that gets them now into the top 6 alliance and maybe even further, because he's pretty much center zone. He can just worm his way in. He can survive, and maybe even a top 3 on the horizon if they don't get spotted here.
Rolling Thunder's still alive. They win that battle of the gate, shall we say, but I gotta say, I have seen many teammates struggle to get through that door with no pressure after 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attempts. Effect threads the needle perfectly. But here come 07 now. They've scanned him. I think they know that there's a solo below them, which is going to be Effect, but they don't want to overcommit to it. The good thing here for 07 is that they can afford to overextend a little bit because of the fact that they do have the red armor. So it's going to go again. And now you're going to see Effect. Unfortunately, this time he hits a speed bump, and it will be the end of the road here for Alliance.
I love the attempt, but at least he got him into the top 6. Got that extra placement point for his squad, but Alliance now will fall. So 5 remain, 07, all reds, and we said about trying to get central zone, trying to get into one of the god spots. Well, 07, they can hold this southern side. They can force out the likes of rolling teams, the like of Forbidden, who are on that northern side because they've got good sight lines on them, and they should be able to not only get damage, but they should be able to hold the southern side and play for this final circle.
Passion's still alive, by the way. They've given up the building that you can see. The doors have got on that building as well, so not the best of places to hold. They've dropped down, or should I say they've come back up now as they work their way in. Rolling teams versus 07. Both teams are going to be forced to move at the moment. And 07, they want to try and cut them down on this cross. They're trying to get across and get some angles, but the Catwall's going to be burning here to see if they can move up and put some damage down. Bangol's going down as well to stop this team pushing. This is a really good defensive Bangol actually coming in from 07 here. They can back up. They know that the team is not going to be able to push them because that Bangol is just going to burn seconds, and now they can play this head glitch.
07 have had great presence here. They've been constantly doing a little bit of damage, trying to force rolling teams into Forbidden. They've almost been asking, where is Forbidden? Finally now rolling teams are starting to get aggressive, and 07 have to try and hold here. They haven't been able to necessarily get the help from Forbidden that they wanted, but now Forbidden are getting involved, and 07 instantly take advantage of that.
This is KP for them. Rolling teams will be eliminated. Nasky did a great job of getting the opening knock in that fight to spark the fight that went down, and 07 should be able to stabilize here and will be able to stabilize. So it's Danish as a full 3 that you can see at the bottom of your screen right now. Passion, who are as a 2 up on the sniper tower, and 07, the only team who have managed to get those Evas up to full reds. They will be your final team.
The Danish dropping over towards Down Beast, and 07 from Cenote. And I think both of them will be pretty happy with the position they find themselves in at the moment, especially when 07 went down to just a 2 earlier and were able to get back up to a full 3. Armor-wise, of course, evident that 07 have the advantage, having the reds. Both catalysts are going to be available and are going to be very prevalent in this final fight because, as we know, you are not affected by the opposition catalyst wall if you are a catalyst. So suddenly a lot of the responsibility for not just gaining info, but also doing damage goes down to that catalyst player.
Well, Zane's going to have an ult excel, which is going to be very important as well. The question is he going to be enough to get that Bloodhound ult back? Round 6 is going to start closing. He still needs around 11% of that to go before it does come back. As the 6 seconds tick by, you would imagine that it is going to come back just in time for this final fight. Great shots coming in from the Nemesis to force Danish just to back away for a little bit here. The question is, can Passion make this as a duo happen? They need to force 07 around. And I think that's their plan here. They want to try and force 07 into Danish and then be the benefactors of it.
Well, one thing Passion have is the core stick. So they've got the barrels. They do have the Nox gas as well that's going to play a big part in this final circle. Passion almost have the ability to say who's going to win this game, but it is 07 who get the knock onto a member of Passion. And if they can do this without losing a player, without even taking too much damage, we should get a straight 3v3.
Well, Zane does have his ult back. Beast of the Hunt is available and it's going to be popped. They go for that final kill. They will get it without taking damage. So it's a straight 3v3 now as the zone is again cut in half by this cat wall. And now you're looking at armor advantage, you're looking at weapons, you've got Havocs, you've got everything, and you've got confidence here for 07 as well. They've won a lot of important team fights, they have a lot of KP, and they have a bang ult as well. Surely this is 07's game to win.
All they need is some of this utility, one of these grenades, one of these bang ults to hit, get that initial damage, and then they can get aggressive and push up on it.
Nasky trying to take a little bit of a wide angle, and now he's going to spray, and now he's going to do big damage, but he gets taken down. Maybe it was an overextension. Is Amphi able to capitalize on the damage? It's all up to Zayn now. As a solo player, it's a 1v2, but Zayn, he's done some crazy things in his time, but this is not going to be one to add to the collection. Danish will win it with a clutch win in the final 3v3.
And I'd be curious to hear the comms of 07 after that situation, because you know, with red armors, with the ultimates, with the utility they had, I think they would have expected to win that one, and they're probably going to be frustrated with the scenario that came out of it. But Danish, on the flip side, that's another victory for them here. Their second victory of the day, getting closer to potentially 3 victories, and the bonus points could be on the cards for them. But more importantly, they won that one when they were kind of on the back foot. They had worse armors, they had a worse position. They'll be delighted. Yeah,
very, very good from them. I just felt in that end game as well, like you say, they had armor. You felt like 07 had position, they had angles, but Nasky, confidence is a funny thing, right? It's a double-edged sword sometimes. The decision, I think, to wide swing that isn't a bad one, but having done that initial damage, I feel like that's a situation where you're like, oh, there's 2 players here. If I don't back up, there's an opportunity for me to get knocked. And it's very easy to be captain in hindsight about this, the greatest superhero of all time, but it's also a situation where you look back at it and it's like, that's where the fight was won, right? That's where the fight changed. And I think for Nasky, it's like, the decision was right, but there was like that just split second where he could have backed out. You make that decision even better, you probably come out on top. But unfortunate for 07, they still had a massive game, a lot of KP for them, and they navigated that zone very well. But again, I think that final fight is just a good example sometimes of how just playing tight, playing together, and making sure your team shooting is all you really need.
Yeah, I think all things considered, 07 will still be happy with top 2, but when they look back, they'll probably see that as a mistake. On the flip side, though, you also have to give credit to Danish, because being able to target Nasky in that scenario by saying there is a player who has swung, he is in a vulnerable spot, let's make sure we take him down, he's the priority. And as soon as that job's done and you've got that first knock, it's then about working together and not allowing a 2v3 to happen. And Danish walk away with 19 points. Technically, 07 still kind of win the game with 20 points, so the 11 kills being massive for them. And then Passion following up 3rd place as a duo, getting 12 points on the board.
Yeah, very, very impressive stuff. I will say as well that Nasky had a very, very good game until that final moment, so it feels a little bit unfair to zone in on that one moment, but you could argue it was one of the most important ones of the game. Forbidden in behind as well, 8 points for them. Rolling teams with the 6 kills. They were one of the teams who won that battle sort of at the gates, as I called it a little bit earlier on. Full English also with some good KP gives them a 9-point total. At the other end, though, it's a little bit quiet for some of our teams that have been quiet. Alliance, by the way, managed to get 6 points due to Effect's crazy driving mobility. And you're looking down on the other side, Gaimin Gladiators and Exo Clan, a little bit quiet for them after you would say a very good start to the day, and Exo Clan with a good start to Stormpoint.
Yeah, there's a few teams who had very early picks in World's Edge, but poor picks in Stormpoint. Gaimin Gladiators was one of them, but we can now look at the damage and the stats, and it was 5,530 damage. 2 players with over 2k from 07. You can understand why they were all on red armors towards the end, but that, again, just leads us to say how impressive it was that Danish were able to walk away and find a victory there to put themselves up on 19 points.
Yeah, very, very impressive stuff. By the way, Zayn, 2.5k damage in an ALGS lobby. That is nothing to shake a stick at. Very, very impressive from him. And when you're looking at total points and total KP, it's no surprise to see 07 sitting at the top of the leaderboards. 28 kills. The next closest, if I'm not mistaken, 22 by DMS down in 10th place. You add those all up and you got 56 points with 1 game to go. They're looking pretty damn good.
And I'm just looking at that leaderboard and looking at where the picks were for the POI draft. Like, were you picking 2 POIs from the middle? Were you picking at the start and the end? 07 were pretty much slap bang in the middle for their picks, with 19 being their first and 22nd being their second pick. That means you are guaranteed to kind of average POIs. 2 POIs that you know you can have success from, depending on what is picked elsewhere on both maps. And at the moment, 07 are making that count. On the flip side, there's a lot of teams who are struggling on the maps where they didn't get a good POI. Gaimin Gladiators being one of them, clearly now on Stormpoint are lacking points, and they're going to fall down the leaderboards because of it.
Well, 07 sit top of the pile after 5 games, and we have 1 more game to come today in our EMEA region. The question is, will they be sitting there at the end of it? Join us after the break to find out. Welcome back, legends. One more game to go here in match day number 3 of the EMEA Pro League, and it's been a fun one so far. 07 sat top of the pile as we go into our final game. But there's one play that we need to highlight from that last one, Dan, because I am a sucker for a trident play, and it's not very often that we see a big late game trident play that steals my heart.
Yeah, the fact that Effect was able to pull that off, I mean, it got them extra placement points. I think that's the key factor. When you look at this moment and how many teams are currently left, it's 8 squads. By making this play, by the time he gets down, there's 6 squads. So he's gained 2 placement points just from doing this alone. But it's to be quick enough to have the thought process of, I will get through that doorway, then I will also be able to pop my smoke and my bat before anything else happens. And sure, it ended in his demise, but there is very little players that would be able to pull off something like that. Second attempt, not as good though.
Overconfidence in the second attempt. So it's like when you do your did you ever do a trial driving test? Did you ever do that? Did your driving instructor ever take it on like a trial?
Yep.
And like you do really well and he's like, yeah, you would have passed. And then you go into your driving test and you're like, this is easy. And you rock up with shades on and you drive with one hand like this. You just immediately, I didn't do that.
I mean, you joke, but that kind of happened to me. I messed up a turn in the road. I hit the curb and I got failed for it. So, and turn in the road, by the way, is the easiest maneuver there is in the driving test. Somehow I managed to mess that one up. Overconfidence.
I'm going to say, it seems like a good reason to fail you, to be honest.
Quite right.
Speaking overconfidence from you, but confidence coming in from Danish in the final moments of that game. I think the way that they played that final moment was very, very impressive. And we'll actually get to see it from their POV right now, because it felt like they didn't have the advantage for numerous reasons, right? The cat wall they didn't have, the Bangalore ult wasn't theirs. They somehow found a safe spot just to kind of, I would say, stabilize a little bit, and then just getting that pick onto Naski managed to focus fire, and the communication obviously would have been very, very good in those final moments to make sure that they could focus Naski in those final moments. And Danish showing that it's not just about what ult you have available. Sometimes it's about the team shooting and hitting your shots in those final moments too.
Having the Bloodhound scan as well, the Q came at the perfect time for them because they were able to see exactly where Naski was. He was isolated. They were able to shoot through the smoke as well because of said scan. It was a shame for the side of 07, but for Danish, you just have to give them credit where it's due. They focused it perfectly, and they are rewarded with their second victory of the day. Can they make it 3 and find themselves with a bonus point? That's the real question.
Well, it's a big opportunity for them to do so, and we will be talking about Danish for quite some time. It's a very elite group of teams who have managed to pick up a bonus point in the Pro League so far since that rule was introduced. And if you're not sure what it is, of course, if you win 3 games, then you're going to get yourself a little bonus point to add to those totals at the end of things, which could make all the difference when it comes to those split to playoff spots. I almost said split to playoff Pro League spots, but that would have been completely incorrect. LAN. We're talking about LAN, everyone.
LAN is where everyone wants to be, right? That is the overall aim, and there are a few teams, I think, who have a chip on their shoulder after either not performing particularly well at LAN or not even getting to LAN. I mean, it was great to speak to Kashira earlier and hear his thoughts and how that fires him up as well. And you speak of being fired up, 07. I mean, we joked about it at the start of the show. They had a horrendous first match day. They couldn't even get over a mountain. Well, today they have not only conquered the mountain, they've conquered every single trial that has been posed in front of them, and they now lead the lobby.
Well, we mentioned in that last game how Danish's comms must have been pretty good to manage to lock out those final moments. While we're waiting for this lobby to get underway, we actually have the comms and the final circle from Danish in their win they had in map number 1. So we'll have to see how the comms are. It's always fascinating to listen in these moments and see exactly how the pressure affects teams. So let's take a look.
Yeah, we can't worry about that right now. We got a lot of kills from it, so it's good, guys.
Yeah.
Team playing this, how far? That's barely. They have
you
to
just
move.
need to not shoot, Sep, unless you see a fucking guy healing or something, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not shooting either.
We just climb here and slide. We just climb there and slide.
He just slides this and you place the fucking venom.
We go from this, we go from like this.
Yeah, from that side.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which side. I think both is good, but maybe this one is better.
Let's get ready to fucking shock a nade down, like, you know what I mean?
Or they're just you guys sitting. I just don't have ammo.
Bro,
it's annoying.
I would have had like 10k damage this game.
If I had ammo as well, bro. I have a K.
I don't even have a bag.
Look at this, Sim.
Yeah, I only have a mag in each of my gun. I have no extra.
Yeah, I'm looking at this.
Fly. I have 1 arc as well.
Yeah, save it for the end game.
Yeah, I'm saving it. I'm gonna save it if they get by. I think they're gonna play these boxes.
Hitting us.
That's fine. It's bad guy nades. My gen will pick them up, I think, when they get on us.
The cat wall early. That's good.
I think we slide from this side. Okay, more time here.
Yeah.
Out here, out in
What are we doing
the
now?
One's batting here.
I'm bang ulting. Bang ulting now.
Not too early.
We go here now. Slide. Place in.
Yeah, can you move? Can you move a bit? Come to me. Come to that. Nice. Right below. Right here.
Yeah. Cat is one. Kill him.
One is behind that guy. I'm gonna arc right below here. I'm gonna arc right. Nice. I have like no ammo, bro. One in knock here. It's one guy knocked here. One guy knocked here. Maybe we slide and kill him. Or what do you think? No, we just say. Okay.
That's time.
Maybe soon though. We don't have much time. Oh, okay.
That was okay.
That works. That was like
Some
my
goof.
man.
Wait, what was that? That was some goof. You know, I fell, bro. I fell. Like that was some goof.
Jasper Vinussen has spoken, bro.
That was some Goofbert all win, bro.
I mean, Hong Kong zone call.
Come on, no beacon, bro. No beacon fucking win. From landslide, no ammo, no nothing.
We actually play better with no beacon.
Easy, bro.
Bro,
We play better with no beacon.
we're actually the cutest. Like, we're actually so cute. I swear. We're just like the cutest.
Well, the self-proclaimed cutest team in the Apex Legends Global Series, but it's time for some honesty from not just you, Dan, but also everybody who's watching at home, and I want to know your honest answer as we head into match number 6, the final game of the day. In that final moment, even though you heard in the communication this is a free win, and it was, how many of you would have slid to that blue crate and missed and fell?
Yeah, I can see 4 times out of 10 me missing it. I'm going to be honest.
I need honesty. Yeah, I'm going to say I need honesty right now from you.
I still think the game is won, but I probably slipped down, and maybe the game could have been won faster with some extra damage. But yeah, it's in the pressure, in tournament stakes, the extra pressure on your shoulders is certainly going to make it difficult. But here's the circle we're going to be heading over towards the western side. Ceto Station, we've already mentioned it a few times. It was the first pick of the entire POI draft by Passion UA, and they are being rewarded for it.
Yeah, it might be a good zone. Well, it will be a good zone for them. It's also a pretty good zone for 07 as well. Dropping over at Cenote, and they have, of course, the Trident, so they're going to be able to scoop up some teammates and get to a spot pretty early. And also, it's just going to help you a little bit on loot pass. You can overextend a little bit more if you've got a couple of Evo harvesters next to you and you grab that Trident. Just allows you to get them, allows you to overextend a little bit quicker, a little bit faster, and make sure that you're going to be leveled up on Evos nice and quick. Passion are going to play for the Godrock. They're going to play for the height here, so this is going to be a very, very good zone for them. A very good spot for them to hold as well. And you can see they're already scanning. They know they can get here first, so that's why you see them move so quickly. Yeah,
it was Passion's 8th pick for the mill, a very popular POI as well. It was the 4th Storm Point one to get chosen, and I think looking at the zones that they've been able to play, I think they'll be pretty delighted with their picks, but also the way that they've played them so far. They find themselves in 7th position, and can they force their way up the leaderboard to maybe find some more points? As Full English, they've lost one here. Phoenix has gone down, and now can Sodelnifin do something?
Well, 15th overall at the moment. It's not a great day for them, but one more game to go, and we know how tight the leaderboards are. If they can get Phoenix back up, then maybe they'll have an opportunity to fight and really give themselves an opportunity for a much better finish at the end of the standings. But Kneecap are looking for them at the moment, and Kneecap will find another one. So even though there are 2, they're making this difficult.
Yeah, and they should be able to clean up the rest of this, and it's always frustrating in match number 6 when you want to just be able to force your way up the leaderboards. To have to take this engagement and to lose in said engagement is always going to be a frustrating one. But it does mean that Kneecap should be able to get back up. Or will they? Dell, a last stand.
Standing tall, Sir Dell, a man who has clutched many times in the ALGS, may have just kept his team's hopes alive a little bit here. Other team's going to be coming down here. It's going to be VexX. So this is going to be a maybe not as easy as you thought a few moments ago. Maybe you will be able to get away and survive, as Kneecap find themselves thinking about what their decision was and if it was the best one for their game day.
It's always a risky fight to take pretty much center zone, or center of the map, excuse me, because so many teams are going to be making this rotation through these areas. And now VexX, they are on the hunt. And how's your shot over the cannon? Couple of tags, but that player should be able to safely get away and try and rat out for some extra placement points. Now, in the overalls, 07 are leading the entire lobby by 7 points, so there is a real opportunity for them to walk away with their fair share of points here today, but they just have to try and stay ahead of the likes of Danish, who are hot on their tails.
I mentioned how important the Trident could be to 07, right? And I kind of like their game plan. I'm going to talk about it here as we look at the wall, and a couple of teams are making their rotate because they're using that trident to overextend for some Evo harvesters. They've got all the way to barometer. They also have a ring console. They also have a survey beacon. So they're going to be leaving, I imagine, Cenote Cave with purples at least. And I think if they're smart about this and they can level up Evos, do a little bit of an interaction around the map before they approach the zone, then they're going to be in a position where they don't really need to fight for a priority spot, but they're going to have good enough armor and Evo that they can third party something as the lobby starts to fall. As the fall, speaking of fallish, unfortunately, will fall by the end of their game day today. But they're basically playing like a minimal risk game, which I think is very smart.
So 15th position is where Full English currently find themselves, but of course going down first means that they could fall even lower in these leaderboards. Vex are a team who are chasing them, so that's a really good opportunity for them to overtake and potentially walk away with more points from the overall standings. Kneecap, they do come out and at least survive, but that fight between Kneecap and Full English, that was a blessing in disguise, really, for Vex.
Well, Vex should be able to clean up the final player here who's desperately trying to go back for some banners. Even with the bang ult going down, you would imagine this is going to be the end of things. There's the jump, there's the spray, and that will be it. Kneecap get kneecapped, and it will be the end of their game day. So a couple of, I would say, spurts of aggression early on here in this lobby in the final game. It's just sometimes what we see, of course, knowing that there's only a certain amount of points up for grab. FA Kids are finding another team that's having a spurt of aggression, and unfortunately for them, Zidane has gone down.
Tippy tap, though. That's the advantage of having a lifeline here. Also quickly dropping the drone just to be able to heal up Zidane when he does get back up. And now they're ahead in this fight. They're going to get aggressive, but it doesn't matter because the FA Kids will survive, but for how long? And there's another team. The EXO clan are here.
The clan have arrived, and it's time for them to pick up a few more KP. They just need to use this blood ult to chase down these players. The Slayers knows what his role is here. It's very simple. Find, hunt, kill. And if you can, it'll be some more points here for EXO clan. Third position overall. They know how tight this is, but I gotta say, this isn't looking the most comfortable, and it looks like they've done a pretty good job of actually surviving here.
There's going to be an isolated fight at Pylon, at the very least. If you're kind of backing off and you're being shot in one of these scenarios, you're just hoping that you're able to reset, and there's not going to be too many teams around. So there is going to be opportunity for a straight 3v3 here, fight here. FA Kids have been able to get one player up to purple, and it's going to be either one player up to red from this, or maybe two players up to purple. What do you go for?
I go for the gold bag and tell nobody that I've got it. That's what I always do. Survey beacon is available. Not sure if they did hit it on this zone. However, they might have to wait a little bit longer to hit it. By the way, the 07 story, just to keep you up to date, they're waiting around in the zone in Cenote Cave. I think they want to hit a beacon again as that zone closes, and now they're going to make their move and their decision based off of it. So you can guarantee that 07 will have purple armors when they do finally leave, which they have to move towards zone. EXO clan, though, who did try and move into third party, might be falling from the skies in the most, I would say, ugly way possible. Whoa! But they're okay. They're okay. Everything's good.
Hits the curb slide, and they just about survive. I do like the use of the Newcastle wall there just to be able to block their backside so that they could cannon over. And now this is the map overhead. You were talking about 07 and their move. They were down in Cenote Cave. They were able to hit the scans. They were able to hit the ring console. So now they have all the information they could possibly want to get into the latter stages of this game. But that is a very full circle, right? You've got 7 teams that have already found themselves in the mill and surrounding areas who are going to be more than happy with the positions they found. But can they hold them? Can 07? If you're 07 here, do you try and maybe go over the top and try and find a northern side and maybe take the fight against the likes of Alliance, for example? Or do you try and force your way in against a Stay Healthier Gaming Gladiators? Either way, it's not going to be fun for them.
If I'm 07 right now, I'm doing nothing. I play the bridge next, and then I decide what to do after that. I'll look for a third party, and they're just waiting at the moment in one of these egg buildings just outside of that bridge that I was talking about. They will be safe, remember. They don't have to do too much. They don't have to force their way into zone right now. It can let the lobby kind of take care of itself before they do anything more. Also, they've just gone back in for another scan of the zone in Cenote Cave. I mentioned how the Trident can be such a big influence on what you can do on the map, how you can access information, Evo, whatever it might be. Your rotates, of course, goes almost without mention. But 07 are making the most of this right now, because even though, you know, zone is closing, zones are getting a little bit hotter, they're really starting to chip away your health meds. Well, having the Trident means you can get in and out so quickly and just keep gathering info.
For 07, they'll just be keeping an eye on that kill feed as well, see if they see Danish eliminated, because if Danish do get eliminated, their closest competitor is only, well, it's 15 points away, and then you don't really have to do as much, and you can play a little bit looser with less pressure on your shoulders. So we'll have to see how Danish do in their journey, but at the moment, they're just holding the mill. We can look at Blacklist International, 20th position right now. Unlikely that they're going to make a big impact on this lobby, but perhaps there is a last game that can shoot them up the leaderboard somewhat to get some points in the overall standings.
Well, the north side of the zone at the moment is Alliance, and that's who Blacklist International might be running into pretty soon. But speaking of which, great job from the observers to switch us over to give this point of view. They are going to be safe Alliance inside in the next zone as well, but they're going to have a lot of work to do. A lot of teams are going to be trying to force their win. You've got Blacklist International, like I mentioned. You've got players. Danish are over at the mill as well, who will be safe inside of one of the halves of the buildings, I should say. But if any kind of fight breaks out, you know that Danish are going to be there looking to third party here. So Alliance have got to be very, very careful here. They cannot overextend, and they cannot afford to get knocked.
I wonder whether you could maybe, as the Pathfinder, try and engage, get out, and encourage another team to come in third party, but then you become the third party by initiating the fight initially. It's not easy to do, but we have seen it, and perhaps it's too risky for Alliance right now, considering the position they find themselves in. They're 16 points away from first place, so it is still within reach, albeit it's going to be difficult for them to do so, but it's still a possibility that Alliance could come out with a match day win here.
3D Max are kind of skirting around the edge of zone at the moment. Another look at Exo Clan, who are set up right in the middle of Ceto Station, trying to hold out a few of these teams, like 3D Max, FA Kids, who will be moving their way down, Vex on the other side of it. The inside of the Vault Tunnel at the moment, or should I say, excuse me, the tunnel, Blacklist International are trying to show no presence.
Well, presence gets given up. The scan...
When that happens, by the way.
I mean, ambushes are so rare now because of the Bloodhound meta, because we see like 90+% pick rates, but sometimes you luck out. A team's either overconfident, doesn't think about the scan, or has already used the scan prior. As you can now see the move of all red armors as well. There's a few teams here that have been able to really harvest the Evo successfully in this game.
Look at 07, by the way. I mentioned how they were just waiting for things to develop, waiting things to kind of take place before they made their move. Well, now they're right in and next to Passion, who are up on that God Rock, of course. But 07 are kind of playing in and around that rock underneath it, I would imagine. Passion UA, of course, are going to be in the zone as well. And speaking of in the zone, well, there's one team who are in the zone, and that's going to be players at the moment over at Mill. Elsewhere, back to Ceto Station, you can see the Exo Clan have left the height. 9 Lions are moving up now to try and fight their way through, and with red armors, they've got a really good opportunity to do so too.
First place, again, probably slightly out of reach for 9 Lives. They're on 35. They're 21 points behind 07, who are still alive at the moment. If 07 somehow were to fall here, then their opportunity to win would be increased tenfold. But judging on how 07 have played so successfully with their rotation, it's looking unlikely. Instead, our eyes train to other teams who now are trying to fight their way into this next zone. Vex have been a thorn in the side for quite a few teams so far, as FA Kids get eliminated in 16th.
Yeah, they're one of the teams who are trying to fight their way essentially through this crowd that we're watching right now. They will go down. Vex are trying to do some damage to Exo Clan, who took damage, but again, Case Winnie with the castle wall on the Newcastle managed to provide some cover for them to at least reset, at least get healthy again before they think about their next move. They won't be safe right now, Exo Clan. They still have a little bit to go, and having used that castle wall to reset and stabilize, the question is now, can they actually get into a position where they can continue to rotate to be safe? It looks like why this fight is going down, the attention will be taken away, and they should be able to scarp it through, but this fight that's happened in and around Ceto Station has been going on for quite some time now. The 9 Lions still won't be safe, and they have to cross that open ground. The question is, do they have smokes? Do they have Bangol? And do they have the catwall? Well, they have the catwall. Oh, they're going to be able to use it, though. No, because Jay Hanzo gets ripped down.
And so does, well, all 3 of them. 1, 2, 3, as easy as ABC. Sadly, they are not able to make their way. They didn't even get the catwall up. I was thinking exactly the same thing. And is it going to be the same for another squad now? As 3D Max are going to try and send with their advantage, but they get ripped from behind, and they will fall, as do Blacklist International. GG come in to clean up all the pieces, and the Gaimin Gladiators, 8th position, 35 points. Could they have a big game to send them up to the top of the leaderboard?
Rolling teams down. Alliance were also eliminated as well on the northern side of that zone. So Gaimin Gladiators, like you mentioned, they're moving in a little bit closer to the zone. Vex are just as a 2, I believe. But here come an Exo Clan, who have been, I would say, in a really tough spot when it comes to their rotation. in the last few moments, but having seen all of those fights take place, they've managed to sneak down just underneath that God Rock for now. Case when he managed to get that castle wall down as well. So he had that available. Wonder if he had to pop a couple of Ultimate cells to get there, but however they got there, they will be safe. But it's a tough spot and they're going to have to keep moving.
But with Alliance falling in 4th, our top 3 is looking more likely the further we get into this game. But where they will finish in that top 3 could heavily be decided in this next fight, and players could actually impact this depending if they push onto Danish, because it's Danish who are locked in that building. It's Danish who are in 2nd place, just 5 points behind 07, but it's Danish who have to move the furthest out of the top 3 right now.
Well, players, remember, they were stuck in zone a few moments ago. And I think they hit an evac over the top, and look at that knuckle cluster. It's doing so much damage, chipping away its shields, and that's one way to get yourself up to purple. But look, Fito, he's going to be careful. Oh, and he was not careful. Again, just the teams in the surrounding area all focused him, and he went down, and that is the opportunity to move if you're stuck inside of that building. Case Winnie also, you can see in the kill feed, he's found himself a Devo, and this is a desperate attempt to hit an evac tower. And even though some damage has been done, they are getting cut down from the skies by ExoClan.
Yeah, this is great news for 07 as well, if they see Danish get eliminated, but one player will escape. One player to try and keep their hopes of winning this match day alive. For ExoClan, they are still within touching distance, albeit still unlikely with how far 07 find themselves ahead right now. They need a victory, and they need to shut down 07 soon. They are currently 14 points behind, but with 10 squads left, it is still achievable here.
Well, there's a really important fight taking place, and it's 07 and Vex. Vex just slammed into zone, and 07 are trying to hold them off. Passionate just behind them as well, who are trying to do some damage. But elsewhere, you can see here, ExoClan still trying to find their way to zone, and find their way to zone they have. Danish have been eliminated alongside ANC Outplayed. So we're down to 8 squads now, and look at this temporary cover. It's being shredded, as is the face of an ExoClan member.
This is the benefit of a Newcastle, though, just like Lifeline used to be able to do, straight back on their feet, but for how long? Look at the amount of players that are focusing them right now. This could be the end of ExoClan because everyone seems to be staring at them. Slayer's the last remaining player. He goes down. 6 squads now remain, and it is looking more and more likely that 07 will be the victors of this match day. They are 17 points ahead of the next closest competitor. That is Passion, but there might just not be enough kills left for Passion to even catch them up at this point.
Yeah, Passion have had a very, very good day, but quite right, like you say, it might just be a case of too much to do in this final game. Even if they pick up all the kills that they can, 07's position and the fact that they're still alive is just going to keep that gap intact. Passion UA might have an influence on who is number 1 at the end of the day, or certainly who will be number 1 at the end of this game. Gaimin Gladiators trying to fight their way through as well, but Max Strafe with the flatline is going to take down Light. And even though Blast is trying to move in through the web that has been constructed, it will be the end of their game. We're down to 5.
07 are spreading themselves out here. They're making themselves big, and potentially another victory on the horizon for them if they play this one correctly, or another chance at victory, excuse me. Stay Healthy and Passion UA on one side, Vex and Passion on the other, and 07 can just pick off whoever arrives first, who are probably going to have been taking a lot of damage. So 07, prime position to win this one.
Passion are on top, Vex were underneath, and 07 are trying to force Passion down from the height of that God Rock by using the Bangalore ult, or certainly trying to contribute to them moving. I think it was actually, excuse me, Vex Bangalore ult from underneath. You can see Nasky's trying to hold his for as long as possible, but now it is going to go down as the zone starts to close. So they're trying to force them right now off of that height. They want them to fall, to be stunned, and to be able to pick up these free KP, which would almost guarantee them a first place finish.
Well, 07 are hoping that Passion UA and Vex are going to get involved and shoot this team that are up above as well. Do enough damage to get them to come down, and you can see at the moment, Passion are in a position where there's several teams that have got eyes on them, and it still allows 07 to find themselves in a really solid spot. Their biggest concern, though, is if they get dropped on when they've taken damage, so they have to be very careful with their position.
I would say the biggest concern is accidentally getting dragged into that cannon, because I've done that before in a game, and it is extremely embarrassing, and it's happened to the best of us. 07 still in position to close this out. Destiny is certainly in their own hands for now. 35 seconds until that zone starts to creep in. But for now, everybody looks safe. I wouldn't say comfortable, but certainly safe.
It's really Stay Healthy who are the team that are the healthiest at the moment in terms of being away from all the confrontation, and they've kind of gone under the radar a little bit. There's certainly teams that know where they are, but they can have a big influence on how this fight goes because they've got the perfect angle on Passion.
I will say that the Passion, I'm pretty sure, have a Trident up there. And a late game boost into zone using the Trident, it's risky.
Effect would do it.
It might just give them a little bit of space that they're looking for. Maybe they'll be inspired by Effects for what he did a little bit earlier.
ALGS coming down again to try and force Passion off of this height. But 07, they are being patient. They recognize that this is one of the better positions. But they're still worried that that drop is going to come. But I think Passion, if they are forced into this drop, they will be forced into a fight that they're most likely going to lose.
Well, Vex will be eliminated in the meantime, and you can see that now Stay Healthy, they're trying to get some shots down, but the players coming in from 07, they're trying to cut the zone in half. They want to take control of this rock for the endgame. Amphi's going to fly in, a little bit of a spray, not too much action when it comes to damage numbers, but his teammates are there to clean it up, and Stay Healthy will be eliminated. 3 squads remaining, 07 have made the play.
For 07, they reset slightly, but now Passion get involved, as well as Passion UA from a distance, but Passion have lost 1, make it 2. And there's one last remaining player for Passion to do some damage, and will be able to stay alive, but what can you do as an individual here?
You bank on the henchman, you win the game. Passion will get it done in the final game. What a performance it was from them to win the final moments. And there's a little bit of ice in the veins of the henchman as well, showing that beautiful thing that you cannot really quantify that's known as the clutch factor.
And that victory sends them up into the top 3, just 1 point behind Danish in the end. So close to jumping into the top 2 to pick up more points in the overall standings. But the overall winners of the match day, we've already mentioned it, 07, doing enough to be able to walk away with the lion's share of the points here today in a very impressive response from what happened in their first match day.
Yeah, I think the talk coming in from Nasky was he was saying this is never happening again. And I think we learned what the mentality was of 07 when we went to the listening as well. There was no laughing, there was no joking. It was all business today. And I think you've seen that in the performance as well. And I think the more and more that they take that attitude, keep the fun edge a little bit. Of course, you've always got to keep that entertainment factor. But I think there's certainly going to be a team to focus on a little bit. And even though, Nasky said himself, maybe he wasn't shooting the best today, some of his eye-gelling was absolutely superb that got them into those spots. So congratulations to 07, an amazing performance from them. But I've got to say, we've got to give some flowers to Passion as well, especially Henchman in those final moments, getting that high ground spot and managing to clutch up.
Yeah, there's several scenarios where players would have probably full sent it with their team, died along their side, and all just kind of saluted together. But he said, look, I think I have an angle here. I can take a spot. It might not provide us with a victory, but it could get us into the top 2. And then when he has that high ground, the other team didn't really know where the final player was, and he took full advantage of it. 07 kind of forced to make a play as well, because no one else really was making a play. Everyone turtling, waiting for someone to do something, and 07 said, you know what, screw it. We've probably won at this point anyway. Let's just move in, get some damage, get some extra KP, and they were able to achieve that, and they were able to achieve first place overall.
Well, let's bring back Rain Day to close this out, because it's Passion. Do you know what? I had a throw, but as soon as I thought about, I was thinking, you know what? Because you did it earlier to me. I was like, I could end the show by giving it back to you.
That would have been
This
great.
is why I'm not allowed to ever host, and why I choose to never host and will never host, because the show would be a shambles.
Well, you know what? I mean, it was the battle of who was more passionate. I love the attempt. It was coming no matter whether you did it or whether I did it. It was happening. I'm glad we don't have to have the battle of who's up next, because go next and next up would have been a tough one. I don't think we could figure that out from a grammatical standpoint of who would actually be next in line. But Passion certainly were more passionate than Passion UA, at least in this last game. 07, hats off, salute. I love the land salute. There's a huge salute coming at the end of the day. We'll talk about them quite a bit, but stay healthy. They made some moves. They jumped up. Vex, they've been a team that I think was a little quiet today. I saw them be pretty relevant in the first week in a couple of end zones. They just didn't have the same consistency. Gaimin Gladiators started off really well. And Exo Clan, obviously, got to win. Quiet from ANC Outplayed, though. That is probably the starkest difference from what we saw last week, winning the group, all the way until now, guys. Back 10, though, and you cast this one as well. You know, what went wrong here for some of these squads you're eyeing on, Dan?
I think there was a few teams that just couldn't really call the zones today. It was very backwards for what they might have seen patterns from scrims, etc. And a lot of people who moved early and then were punished because of it. But I also noticed a lack of confidence from a lot of squads as well. There were oftentimes you could have taken a fight and you could have probably won that engagement and it was isolated, but they opted to avoid that fight and play zone instead, and then achieve nothing after not getting in one of the priority positions. So I think a big lesson for most teams today was perhaps we could be more confident in certain scenarios.
And, you know, it ends up making a big difference as well, because series results, you see teams that were sitting pretty in that third, fourth position drop a little bit here. ExoClan and Alliance as well. Passion with a great game at the end of it to win it, pushed themselves all the way up into third. Danish 1 point away from them, but Danish most likely would have had that tiebreaker because they have won 2 games already. And so I think that would have gone their way. But 07, hats off, salute yet again. They have found a way to do it. And I think one of the more interesting ways that they did that was telling everybody that they were going to do it. You got to respect those moments. And, you know, it was a lot. You know, match 4, we have some final circles as well to run through, just to kind of recap how this all went. Because there were a back and forth here, because it was, you know, Mark, even at the start, we kind of saw ExoClan start to pop off. We thought maybe there would be this resurgence from them. It was good enough for a fourth. I think they've got to be happy about that. And again, losing Bryn in the unfortunate circumstances, just looking at Exo, I mean, this is a good performance from them.
Yeah, so whenever you lose a member and you're having to go into a new game week with a new player, you've always got that, you know, air of what's going to happen. You know, you're not quite sure what to expect, how things are going to go. And a fourth place, I think any new team would be very, very happy with. It's just a solid performance, isn't it? You're winning a game as well, which shows that, you know, there's a chemistry there to win a game, which is very important. But I think the interesting thing for me was how the team started to separate themselves as they went into Storm Point, right? Because after 3 games on World's Edge, it was a couple of points between every single place. It was, you know, from first to 20th. But when we got down to the nitty gritty and we got to those final moments and Storm Point started to take over, you started to see a couple of teams just kind of separate themselves from the pack.
And I also tend to think that when you look even at this game 4 here, there was a lot of decisions that you look at stay healthy on the other side of this, maybe they didn't make well. You see Masenko use the Dark Veil and does nothing off of it because they hear K-Swinney drop down the castle wall. But is that to their demise? They have one shot, they hit the 95, swings with the alternator, but instantly gets killed. And that was really the difference. That was the push. They took that low ground. Game 4 would go to ExoClan's way. And then game 5, Dan, walk us through that, because you and Mark started off those last 2 games casting, but game 5 may be the most scintillating final matchup as well.
And this could have been, you know, a victory for 07. We were expecting it to be a victory for 07 in the end, but it actually means we get 3 times in a row here in EMEA where our match day winners didn't find a win throughout the 6 games that we had. But this should have been one when you look back at it. 07 had the armors, they had the position, they had the utility, but it was the swing from Nasky in the end that, you know, everyone's going to forget. It's not going to matter because they won the match day. But still, when he put himself into this position, it could have been a brilliant play or a tough play, but the scan came at just the wrong time for him. He got spotted out through the smoke, sadly goes down, and then from that point, it was always going to be battling uphill, and 07 couldn't quite get the victory, but they had so many kills, it was basically a win anyway.
One of the interesting things about the way that they won without winning a game, and we do have it again, it's bizarre what's happening in EMEA, but I love to see it as well, is they got a lot of kills. It was not an ANC Outplayed type style where they got a lot of placement points and some decent kills. They got 70 points and no win, so they were rocking it even up until this last moment, Mark.
Yeah, I thought this was a game they were going to win as well, to be honest, 07. They played for that rock early and they managed to get good KP, good kills as well. And it's just, you know, they could have won this game comfortably because of the fact that it was one player alive from Passion, right? And they just weren't able to kind of work out where the shots were coming from. And one more player maybe staying on his feet and getting an armor swap in that situation, in that fight, and it could have been very different. But 07, I think the bounce back is the story, right? The bounce back from a disappointment of their first game day to showing us what they can do, and knowing that the ceiling is even higher for this team as well, it is very, very impressive from them. And I think it's great signs for them moving forward to show that the POI draft isn't affecting how they're playing the game. They're able to adapt, they're able to overcome regardless of where they're dropping.
And I think also, Dan, it speaks when you look at these overall standings here, just so these top 3 really quickly, to the consistency that we've seen Made in Heaven, Danish, and Passion display, despite not necessarily being the biggest names when we think of EMEA.
I think ever since we had the POI draft come into the equation, consistency was always going to be the buzzword that we talk about. Who can still find victories despite having potentially a bad POI? Because everyone changes where you pick in the draft, depending on where we are in the season. There will be weeks where you have really good POIs. There will be weeks where you have one really good one and one really bad one. And yes, the zone can make a difference in that, but it's also about being able to play from anywhere. And the teams at the top at the moment are those that are demonstrating that, just as Onset was saying about 07. And then we see the teams that have maybe been struggling, maybe aren't quite used to the draft, haven't been able to draft correctly. There's been a few odd picks here or there, but people are learning, people are developing. It is an entirely different way to play Apex Legends, but it is certainly an entertaining one.
Yeah, when you look at a 15 points, but you're just outside of the edge of the, kind of top 20 or 21st, I think you could be okay because there's still a lot to learn. You had a couple of good moments, and you didn't really find that thing that would make your team be successful so far in the first round robin. And that will be it in terms of the round robin circle for the first of now 2 more remaining in our Split 2 Pro League, which is interesting. And I think it also looks at different dynamics of how different teams will have to make the adjustments for them. Some teams are getting hit with new rosters right away, so it's incorporating that player. Some teams are having rosters and then losing a player, having to reincorporate another one and still be successful. Some teams are expected to perform and just haven't found the rhythm. And 07, that was the real story for today. And I think we're in the position where we can actually talk about an MVP here. And when I look at it, to me, if we get that go ahead, we do, it is going to be none other than Nasky. Now, I know Zane had 16 kills. He had about 7,500 damage, but Nasky, he had 14 assists. He had 9 kills. He had about 6,000 damage himself. And the biggest thing that to me makes him the MVP of today is the leadership. It takes a lot of confidence and it takes a lot of accountability to go online publicly and say, I played terribly. This will not happen again. And what is even more impressive, that it wasn't a middling performance. It wasn't a, pretty good. I mean, that definitely shows they're headed the right direction. It was 07 dominated today. And yes, they didn't get a win. There's still things to work on, but they were clearly the most dangerous team. And that is not to put anything aside from Amphi, who played that catalyst role so well. This squad, we knew when they brought Zane in, was looking to be cooking. And as Nasky knows, maybe the food in real life is okay. It seems like in the ALGS, he's turned up the heat to 11. And from Denmark, the man with, the plan, 07 feels that they're on the right track again. And that's in large part thanks to the MVP of today, which is Nasky. And speaking of Nasky, we get a chance to talk with him. And I believe he's going to be joining us right now. Nasky, are you joining us? There it is. I thought I knew you were coming on. What's up, buddy? Hey, man.
It only took a week before seeing you again, Randy.
I know. And listen, I'm not asking where you're from. You did. Okay, let's get to this because this is the thing we really needed to know. You made a huge statement earlier in the week and you told the world that was the worst you've ever played. Then you went out and said, I will never have that happen again. Then you come in the very next match day and you win. That has got to be a good feeling. Walk me through the emotion that you're having after today's performance today.
I mean, so last week we got 18th, right? And I've never ever, at least I might have to check the stats on that, but I'm pretty sure I've never ever placed 18th or lower in any ALGS ever in my life. So obviously that was a crazy bummer, especially considering the talent that we have on our team. I'd easily say that we're the best team in Europe and a LAN contender. So for us to not reach those standards that maybe not everyone in the world has on us, but at least the standards that we put on ourselves, the fact that we weren't able to reach that last week was a massive bummer. I was in the bed after the Pro League. I completely shut myself off, said no one contact me. And I was in my bed. I was like, not crying, but I was almost there. And then we got back to the drawing board. We established what was wrong. We figured out some stuff. Obviously, all of that stuff is secret. We don't want people getting catching on, right? But it was basically character swaps. We swapped around who played SWAT. We were talking about this for a lot, and in the end, we kind of figured that Amphi learned Catalyst perfectly in 5 days. So we're gonna play this comp, and that's kind of what we did to make it work this week. And now that we got it sorted, I bet you will have another interview very soon too.
Well, hopefully so. I want to jump in and firstly, congratulations on the win today, Nasky. It's always great to see you guys back on top. But one thing that stood out to me today, we went to a listen-in with you guys and it felt like it was like business. Like there was no kind of like jovial attitude. It was like, shit's getting done. You know what I mean? It was that kind of feel today. Was that something that you tried to work on yourselves, or maybe did we just jump into a listen-in and we didn't quite catch that?
No, definitely no. I mean, so last week we were very, very focused in our comms, and I don't know what it is, but then one of the scrim days we were like, you know what, F it, let's have some fun, and we ended up playing pretty good, and we kind of just concluded that. I mean, me and Zane are kind of notorious for being like this trolling duo, right? And so Don has been working with us on this, our coach. He's been working on us, like getting locked in, like not trolling, stuff like that. But then we had a troll scrim session and we were like, hey, this is kind of working. For some reason, I play way better. For some reason, Zane plays way better. So we're like, all right, you know, F it. Let's just joke around, have some fun. We'll do some goofy stuff. So our comms this week were definitely our least business comms or whatever we've ever had, I think, or like for the last 6 months. So even with our previous teammate.
You also managed to win this match day without finding a victory in game. We did see, you know, highlights of that game where you came very close to winning. You went for a wide swing, got taken down, got scanned at completely the wrong time. It was very unfortunate. But is it frustrating to win a match day but not get a victory on the board, or does that not really bother you guys?
Super frustrating. Game 5, I completely threw it. We had an amazing rotate, amazing game. We were all playing really good. I'd say I was IGLing really well too. And then in the very final fight, I just overstepped and I completely sold my teammates. It was an easy win. And I completely sold them. So that absolutely stung. But vibes were up. We were, I believe, first place after that. So it wasn't that big of a deal. And obviously, we don't have match point format in Pro League, at least not till match day, the finals. So not winning wasn't a big defining factor. I mean, we won the day, and that's all that matters. Obviously, we would have loved to get some more wins, right? Because you can kind of show off when you do that.
We speak of defining factors. How much do you think the POI draft kind of changed today? Because last week you chose like 30th and 38th or something like that, whereas this week it was 19th and 22nd, around there. So you were middle of the pack here. You had 2 more average POIs. Did that help you rather than having a strong one in a weak one?
I'm a massive fan of POI draft because Siphon, you can land North Siphon, you can land South Siphon, and if anyone takes one or the other, we take the other one and we fight. And Europe, they're all good little boys, and they don't contest us. So no matter what, we get our best POI, and we can just have a good day. And then obviously we'd like to pick first, because then we can pick a good POI on Stormpoint. But POI draft, I love it. For like the last or first pick, whatever, we always get good POIs, and I think that's amazing. So I think that was good.
You know, Nasky, here's a question I want to ask, because I want to know more about this team dynamic before we let you go, because I think it's really interesting how you guys bounced back. But sometimes, you know, as the leader, do you find that you have someone on your team, and is it Amphi, is it Zane, who could check you if the timing isn't right, or there's something with Nasky that didn't work right, that they can give you that honest feedback as well, and you don't have to just give yourself feedback and beat up on yourself? I mean, what kind of dynamic do you have with the boys being able to be candid with you if things aren't going right and they think that a change needs to be made?
I love that question. We have, in my opinion, at least in my history of Apex, we have the best dynamic I've ever witnessed myself. We're all really, really close knit, so we can goof around a lot. And if someone messes up, we can tell them, "Yo, get your stuff together and sort yourself out." And we can do it in a very, very toxic way and really get the point across, but it's still lighthearted enough to the point where we can just goof back. And I think being able to be completely like not held back at all helps you like articulate what went wrong and what the issues are. And I think if you can get past that, you're able to get the feedback across really, really well. The problem is sometimes it's hard for people to deal with toxic people, and sometimes, you know, it's very individual. But I'd say because we have such a good dynamic, we're able to do that and really get the feedback across, and without it like what's it called, sitting on someone's shoulder or whatever, like being bad. And it all really comes well together because we have Don, our coach, and he does a phenomenal job in like making sure our mental is good. Right? He does all the coaching stuff, and then outside of the game, he makes sure that we are all good and stuff. So we have this really amazing dynamic. When we do bad, we all back each other up. When we do good, we all have. Of course, it's easy during good times, but during bad times, which is the most important, I'd say, it's really, really good.
Well, you guys put on a show today, man. Congratulations. I know you'll be looking at how you can improve as well, but certainly you said you were going to do something and you did it. That has got to be fun. Congratulations to all the 07 fans out there, and Nasky, Amphi, and Zane, and the boys. Congrats, buddy.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
A salute. 07 salute. You got to love it. All right, you know, what a day. We've got more coming up, but EMEA closes out 07 with the win. Nasky, MVP, and the interview. Mark, your thoughts on today so far in EMEA and closing us out?
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the best interviews we've had. I mean, Nasky's always a great talker, but I think getting that insight just about, you know, team dynamic, how things work, accountability, all these things that maybe you don't see if you just watch the gameplay, it gives you a bigger picture of what happens in the ALGS and what these teams have to adapt and go through to be successful. So fantastic interview. I think it was a really good set of games today, and I think 07 will be very happy, apart from the fact they didn't win a game. That's something to work on for the next time, though.
Definitely something to work on. Dan, your final thoughts on a day of action in EMEA?
I will continue to echo the sentiment from Nasky that I love what the POI draft is bringing. As a man who loves stats, just being able to see what the kind of average draft pick is, where those points are coming from, and those stats only going to look better as we play more games, as we get more data. And I love that his kind of way of viewing it is we are so confident no matter what POI we're in that we think we're the best team in the region, if not one of the best teams in the world type thing. And I think that's what POI draft offers. It offers consistency in any POI that you might land on, and certainly 07 are a team to watch.
And I think just to summarize that before we close, guys, I think consistency is what 07 has missed. I think that's the one thing that when we get to LAN, it's 2 to 3 many contests. It's not enough feedback or changing that issue quickly. We've never questioned whether they have the talent to pop off and win a game or win a series. It's can they do it over the course of those grueling, you know, playoffs that we have where you're just tested at all times in so many different scenarios. Well, maybe POI draft has finally given that to them. They've certainly taken the win today, and that's 07 grabbing it. Onset, Gaskin, take a little break. We've got more coming up today, so you need your rest as we close out the show. Coming up in North America, it is match day 3 in the ALGS, which means it is the last chance for teams from B and C to be able to go head to head and claim the top spot. Liquid Alienware, they popped off as we had a chance to see them on Sunday last week, finding some good kills and some great in-games as well, like this one. And continuing, of course, to be an impressive threat across North America. And representing Mexico, Vamos, Liquid Alienware, and Oblivion. What can they do? One of my favorite games on the Xbox. You got to give a shout out to that, Elder Scrolls. But also in this one, they look like they might have read the Elder Scrolls. A couple of these plays. They knew how things were going to go, and we'll see if Reeds on his new squad, formerly an Oxygen Esports member, can continue to fight, because they were a deadly trio heading into our final lobbies. And a team that we want to see a lot from, still looking to get completely into the rhythm that we expect from them, but slowly but surely showing us the talent and experience, and sticking together instead of switching trials makes up for a lot. And DSG with one of the probably more exciting plays there, that fuse play. Will they rock the fuse again? Will Designful stay on the rate? We'll find out coming up in just a little bit. So stay tuned. Maybe grab some water, maybe go get some lunch, leave twitch.tv/playapex on for sure. And if you don't, make sure you at least follow us on X at PlayApex Esports and at PlayApex Esports on YouTube to catch up with all of our live VODs and tweets that give you all the information on what is coming next. In the meantime, go download some Apex, play some Apex. It's free to play. You know, you might not be a pro yet, but hopefully you get a little bit better. And in just a little bit, in a couple of hours or less, we will be back with North America. So everybody, thank you for watching all of our production, our crew, our talent, everyone involved involved on the EA side as well. And remember to never give up. Never stop gaming. We'll see you all in North America.